Does it ever feel like you are running on a treadmill that just keeps getting faster? Your phone pings with another urgent notification. Your calendar is a mosaic of back-to-back commitments. And there is this constant, low hum of pressure to do more, have more, and be more. We are all navigating a world of overwhelming speed and complexity, where the definition of success often feels tied to external metrics: the next promotion, the bigger house, the accumulation of likes and followers. It is exhausting, and it raises a profound question. In the midst of all this noise and chase, is there a more solid, more reliable path to a life that is not just successful on the surface, but truly fulfilling at its core? This is where we turn to a source of wisdom that might seem, at first glance, incredibly distant. We are going to explore the practical power of Stoicism. This is not about dusty old textbooks or academic lectures. It is about an operating system for life, developed 2,000 years ago, that is shockingly relevant for the chaos we face today. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who ruled one of the most complex empires in history while facing immense personal turmoil, wrote these words to himself: "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Think about the sheer weight of that statement. In a world desperate to control everything around us, what if the real key to power was to understand the stark difference between what we can and cannot control? This single insight is the foundation of a profound transformation. In this deep dive, we are not just skimming the surface. We will unpack specific, enduring Stoic principles that have guided everyone from slaves to statesmen. We will explore the liberating idea of the dichotomy of control, which teaches you to invest your energy only where it truly counts. We will challenge the modern obsession with status and wealth by examining the radical Stoic claim that virtue, your character, your integrity, your courage is the only true good. And we will investigate the powerful practice of Amor, Fati, the love of one's fate, which teaches us to not just endure life's obstacles, but to embrace them as fuel for our growth. We will connect these ancient ideas directly to your modern life, to the stress of a demanding career, the complexities of your relationships, and the quiet quest for personal peace. This journey is an invitation to step off the relentless treadmill and build an inner citadel of calm and purpose. It is a map to a different kind of success, one that is unshakable because it is built from the inside out. How much of your daily stress comes from trying to control things you ultimately have no power over? Think about that for a moment. The anxiety about a future event, the frustration with another person's behavior, the simmering anger over a traffic jam or a delayed flight. So much of our mental and emotional energy is poured into a desperate attempt to manage the unmanageable. This is precisely where Stoic philosophy begins its work, with a principle so foundational that everything else is built upon it: the dichotomy of control. The ancient teacher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, opened his manual for living, the Enchiridion, with this stunningly clear statement: "Some things are within our power, while others are not." Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. This is not a gentle suggestion, it is the bedrock of mental clarity. The Stoics argue that suffering is not caused by events themselves, but by our opinion of those events, and our frantic insistence that reality should be different than it is. The moment you internalize this distinction, you begin to reclaim a profound sense of agency. Your power does not lie in dictating outcomes, which are often subject to a million variables you cannot influence. Your true power lies exclusively in your internal world, your judgments, your desires, your aversions, and the actions you choose to take. This is your absolute domain. Let us make this intensely practical. Imagine you are working on a critical project at work. The final outcome, whether the client approves it, whether your boss is impressed, whether it leads to a promotion, is not within your complete control. It depends on the client's mood, your boss's biases, market conditions, and sheer luck. If you tie your sense of worth and peace to that outcome, you are setting yourself up for anxiety and disappointment. The Stoic approach is to shift your entire focus to what is within your control. You can control the quality of your research. You can control the effort you put into the presentation. You can control your attitude and your professionalism during meetings. You can control how you respond to feedback, whether it is positive or negative. By investing all your energy here in your own effort and attitude, you achieve two things. First, you dramatically increase the likelihood of a good outcome because you are focused on excellence in your own sphere. Second, and more importantly, you protect your peace. Regardless of the result, you can look yourself in the mirror and know that you did your part with integrity and skill. The outcome then becomes something you can accept with equanimity. This applies everywhere. You cannot control whether your friend is on time, but you can control whether you spend the waiting time in agitation or in patience. You cannot control the weather, but you can control your preparation for it and your decision to find joy regardless. The goal is to become like a skilled sailor. You cannot command the wind or the waves, but you can absolutely master the set of your sails and the grip on your rudder. Your journey becomes not about fighting the sea, but about navigating it with wisdom. So let us put this into practice right now. Pause for a moment and think of 3 things that caused you worry or frustration this week. Now mentally place each one into one of 2 categories. Is it something within your power, your judgments, your actions, your responses? Or is it something outside your power, another person's choice, a past event, a future possibility? Simply doing this exercise begins to rewire your brain. It trains you to stop pouring your precious energy into the vast ocean of the uncontrollable and to start channeling it into the one place where it can truly make a difference, your own mind and your own choices. If you lost your job, your savings, and your social status tomorrow, what would truly define your worth? This is not a hypothetical question designed to frighten you, but a powerful tool to excavate the very foundations of how you measure a life well lived. Our culture constantly broadcasts a single, deafening message. Success is something external. It is the corner office, the luxury car, the impressive title, the number of followers you have. But what if this entire framework is built on unstable ground? The Stoics proposed a radical, almost shocking alternative. They argued that the only true good, the only thing that constitutes real success, is your moral character, your virtue. Everything else that we typically chase, money, reputation, power, even our health, falls into a category they called indifference. Now, this is a term that is often misunderstood. The Stoics were not saying that these things do not matter at all. It is perfectly natural to prefer health over sickness, wealth over poverty, a good reputation over slander. These are preferred indifference, but they are called indifference because they lack the power to truly make you good or bad, worthy or unworthy. They are like the props on a stage. An actor's true talent is not determined by the quality of the sword he holds, but by his skill in performing the role. Your character is the performance, the external conditions are merely the props. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man who experienced immense wealth and also faced exile and ultimate forced suicide, captured this distinction with piercing clarity. He wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. This is a reason for ensuring that nothing ever takes us by surprise." We should project our thoughts ahead of us at every turn and have in mind every possible eventuality, not just the ones that usually happen. While this speaks to preparation, its deeper meaning points to the source of our turmoil. We are shocked and crushed because we assigned ultimate value to things that can be taken away. He continues more directly elsewhere, stating that a wise person's good is a mind that is complete and upright in itself. Nothing is good which can be put to wrong use by an evil possessor. A fortune can be used for philanthropy or for corruption. A position of power can be used for justice or for tyranny. Therefore, the fortune and the power cannot be the good itself. The good is the wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance with which you use them. This is what redefines success from a trophy you acquire to a person you become. Let us bring this into the modern world with a concrete example. Imagine you are a business owner and you discover a legal but morally questionable accounting loophole that would save your company a significant amount of money this quarter, boosting profits and making you look like a hero to your investors. The external metrics of success, the bottom line, your reputation as a shrewd operator, all scream for you to take it. The Stoic, however, pauses and asks a different question. Does this action align with the virtues of wisdom and justice? Wisdom might ask about the long-term consequences, the erosion of trust if the practice is discovered, the precedent it sets for your company culture. Justice considers the fairness to the tax system and the society your business operates within. Choosing to forego the short-term profit in favor of the virtuous path might look like a failure on a spreadsheet. But in the Stoic view, you have just achieved a profound success. You have strengthened your integrity. You have acted in accordance with your rational nature. You have built a foundation of self-respect that no market fluctuation can ever devalue. That internal achievement is the real prize. This framework completely transforms our relationship with so-called failure. We have all experienced projects that did not work out, relationships that ended, or goals we did not meet. The conventional response is to see these as pure losses. But the Stoic asks you to conduct a different kind of audit. Look back at a recent event you labeled a failure. Instead of judging it by the outcome, reevaluate it based on your own actions within it. Did you act with courage even if you were afraid? Did you deal with others justly and with fairness? Did you exercise wisdom in your planning and temperance in your emotional reactions? If you can answer yes, then that failure was in fact a success of character. The outcome was outside your control, but your virtuous conduct was not. You may have lost the external battle, but you won the internal war, and that is the only war that truly matters for your lasting peace and fulfillment. This shift in perspective is liberating. It means your worth and your success are no longer hostages to fortune. They become a daily practice, a series of choices entirely within your command. Now consider a different kind of ruler, not of a business but of the entire Roman Empire. Marcus Aurelius faced constant barbarian invasions along the frontiers, a devastating plague that wiped out a significant portion of the population, and even betrayal from those closest to him. He did not just grit his teeth and bear it. In his private journal, known today as Meditations, he wrote a powerful prescription for his own soul. A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. Another passage reveals his core practice. Love the humble art you have learned and take rest in it. Pass through the remainder of your life with a heart satisfied. in cheerful acquiescence to the gods, not groaning under your lot nor weary of it. This is the essence of the third principle, a Latin phrase that sounds simple but carries immense transformative power, Amor Fati. It translates to a love of one's fate. This is not about passive resignation, a kind of sighing, whatever will be attitude that simply gives up. That is fatalism. Amor Fati is the exact opposite. It is an active, creative, and dynamic engagement with reality. It is the decision to not merely endure the things that happen to you, but to embrace them, to welcome them, and to find a way to love them because they are now a part of your story, the raw material you have been given to work with. It is the mindset of the blacksmith who sees a piece of scrap metal not as junk, but as the potential for a beautiful new blade. The obstacle itself becomes the way forward. The Stoic accepts the what is of the universe, not with bitterness, but with the curiosity and determination of an artist looking at a fresh block of marble. The flaw in the stone is not a reason to discard it. It is a feature that will guide the sculptor's hand and make the final statue uniquely powerful. This is how setbacks are transformed into fuel for resilience. When you love your fate, you stop fighting against the current of reality and start learning how to swim with purpose and strength. Let us make this practical with a profound modern parallel. Imagine a dedicated Stoic who receives a devastating diagnosis of a serious illness. The passive approach would be to collapse into despair, to rage against the unfairness of the universe. The active resignation of Amor Fati does something entirely different. It accepts the diagnosis as a simple fact, the new reality of the situation. It then asks the creative questions: how can this experience teach me about my own strength? How can it deepen my relationships with my family? How can it force me to prioritize what is truly important in the limited time I have? The illness becomes a brutal but effective teacher, a test of character that reveals reserves of courage the person never knew they possessed. Now, translate that to a professional context. Imagine you are suddenly laid off from a job you held for a decade. The initial shock and fear are natural, but the practice of Amor Fati would guide you to shift your perspective. This is not a catastrophe, it is a forced redirection. It is the universe's way of pushing you out of a comfortable but perhaps stagnant position. It is an opportunity, however unwelcome, to finally learn those new digital skills you have been putting off, to explore a different industry you have always been curious about, or to start the business you have been dreaming of. The layoff becomes the catalyst for growth you would never have chosen for yourself, but which ultimately leads to a more authentic and fulfilling career path. The key is to move from asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to asking, "What can I now do with this?" This is how you build an antifragile character, one that does not just withstand shocks but actually becomes stronger because of them. So let us bring this home. Take a moment and identify one current difficulty in your life. It could be a strained relationship, a financial pressure, a health issue, or a work project that is not going to plan. Now, instead of focusing on the frustration, actively brainstorm one potential hidden benefit or learning opportunity contained within this very situation. Perhaps the financial pressure is teaching you resourcefulness and clarifying the difference between your wants and your true needs. Maybe the difficult project is forcing you to develop patience and improve your communication skills under stress. Look for the seam of gold within the rock. Finding it does not make the rock disappear, but it completely changes your relationship to the work of breaking it open. Imagine your mind as a fortress. How strong are its walls against the daily sieges of bad news, criticism, and anxiety? Each piece of negative news is like a rock hurled against the stone, every critical comment an attempt to scale the walls, and the constant hum of worry a persistent force trying to wear down the gates. The Stoics envisioned this fortress as the inner citadel, a sanctuary of reason and calm that you build within yourself, a place that remains unbreachable no matter the chaos unfolding outside. This is not an inborn trait for a lucky few. It is a skill, a disciplined practice constructed brick by brick through daily mental training. The core building materials for this citadel are practices like the premeditation of evils, where you calmly consider what could go wrong, not to live in fear, but to inoculate your mind against the shock of adversity. By mentally rehearsing challenges, from a professional setback to a personal loss, you strip them of their power to surprise and destabilize you. You prove to yourself in advance that you have the inner resources to endure. This prepares the ground for the master key to the entire fortress, a principle articulated perfectly by the philosopher Epictetus. He taught, people are not disturbed by things, but by the views which they take of them. Your boss's harsh email, a sudden bill, a friend's careless remark. These events are, in themselves, neutral. They are just data, just things that happened. The disturbance, the anger, the anxiety, they do not live in the event. They are born in the split second after the event, in the space where you form a judgment about what it means. You judge the email as a personal attack, the bill as a catastrophe, the remark as a deep betrayal. It is this judgment, this story you tell yourself, that then unleashes the emotional storm. The strength of your inner citadel is measured by your ability to guard that space between event and judgment, and to choose your interpretation with wisdom rather than impulse. Let us walk through a common scenario to see this in action. You worked tirelessly on a project and present it to your team, only to have a colleague publicly tear it apart with what feels like unfair and overly harsh criticism. The initial, raw impression is one of humiliation and anger. Your heart races, your face flushes, and the urge to retaliate or defend yourself viciously rises like a wave. This is the moment the outer walls are being tested. A person without a fortified mind gets swept away by this wave. They fire back an angry email. They sulk for the rest of the day. They internalize the criticism as a truth about their own inadequacy. The Stoic, however, has trained for this exact moment. Before a single word is spoken or typed, they enact the most powerful practice of all, the pause. They take a breath, creating a sliver of space between the stimulus and their response. Inside that space, they conduct a rapid audit of their judgments. They ask, is this criticism entirely within my control? No, the other person's words and opinions are their own. Is my initial judgment that this is a catastrophic personal attack the only possible interpretation? What if my colleague is under immense stress themselves and taking it out poorly? What if their critique, though delivered brutally, contains a tiny nugget of truth I can use to improve? What if this is not about me at all, but about their own insecurities? By questioning the initial, emotionally charged judgment, you drain it of its power. You realize you have a choice. You can choose the judgment that this is an opportunity to practice patience and grace under fire. You can choose the judgment that your worth is not determined by one person's opinion on one bad day. From that place of chosen clarity, your response can then be rational and effective. Perhaps you wait an hour and then approach the colleague calmly, saying, I heard your feedback in the meeting. I'd like to understand your perspective better. Could we discuss the specific points you'd like to see improved? This response, born from a fortified mind, de-escalates conflict, upholds your dignity, and potentially turns an adversary into a collaborator. The criticism did not change, your judgment about it did, and that changed everything. The fortress held. To begin strengthening your own inner walls, make a simple commitment. Before your next strong emotional reaction, whether it is road rage, frustration with a child, or panic over a missed deadline, consciously practice inserting that pause. In that quiet moment, ask yourself one question. What is the story I am telling myself about this event? Is that story absolutely true, or is it just one of many possible interpretations? This single act of questioning is the equivalent of laying a new, stronger stone in the wall of your mind. It is the daily practice that, over time, builds an unshakable citadel of calm. How will this problem that feels so overwhelming today look to you in 5 years, or from the perspective of the entire cosmos? This shift in viewpoint is the heart of the fifth Stoic principle, a powerful mental exercise known as taking the view from above. It is a deliberate act of psychological distancing, a way to zoom out from the intense close-up of your immediate concerns and see your life from a vantage point so vast that it cannot help but reshape your understanding of what truly matters. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was a master of this practice. In the midst of leading military campaigns and managing the immense burdens of state, he would write reminders to himself like this: think of the universal substance, of which you have a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to you, and of that which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it you are. He was not belittling his own life, but rather placing it within its proper, humbling context. He would also reflect on the vast parade of human history, reminding himself, look back over the past with its changing empires that rose and fell, and you can foresee the future too. This practice is a direct antidote to the ego and the anxiety it fuels. Our minds have a natural tendency to magnify our own troubles, to place our personal drama at the very center of the universe's stage. The view from above corrects this distortion. It reminds us that we are a tiny, fleeting part of an incomprehensibly large and ancient cosmos. The meeting you are stressed about, the argument you cannot stop replaying in your head, the minor social embarrassment that makes you cringe, from a cosmic perspective, these events are less significant than a single grain of sand on an endless beach. This is not meant to make you feel insignificant in a depressing way, but to liberate you. It dissolves the artificial urgency and self-importance that so often paralyze us. Consider a mundane but universal source of modern frustration: being stuck in a terrible traffic jam. You are running late, your schedule is collapsing, and you can feel the tension building in your shoulders. In that moment, the traffic jam feels like the most important thing in the world, a massive obstacle deliberately placed in your path. Now activate the view from above. Mentally pull the camera back. See your single car among thousands in a vast, tangled ribbon of metal on a concrete road. Pull back further. See your city as a tiny grid of lights on the surface of a planet. Pull back even more. See the Earth itself, a beautiful blue and white marble spinning in the immense blackness of space. From that vantage point, where does your traffic jam exist? It vanishes, the frustration, the honking, the delay. It all becomes cosmically trivial. This does not magically clear the traffic, but it completely transforms your experience of it. The frustration loses its fangs. You are no longer a victim of a cosmic injustice. You are simply a human being on a planet, experiencing a very common, temporary delay. This mental shift creates a space for patience, for acceptance, and perhaps even for using the time to listen to something valuable or simply to breathe. The same technique can be applied to much larger challenges. The anxiety about a major financial decision can be softened by contemplating the billions of such decisions made by humans throughout history. The pain of a personal rejection can be held in the context of the countless relationships that have formed and dissolved over millennia. Your story is unique to you, but its broad themes, struggle, love, loss, ambition, are as old as humanity itself. This perspective fosters a profound sense of humility and connectedness. You realize you are not alone in your struggles. You are part of a grand, ongoing human story, and your chapter, while important to you, is just one of many. This realization is not depressing, it is grounding. It connects you to something larger than yourself and frees you from the exhausting burden of believing that your every problem is a world-ending catastrophe. To integrate this practice into your own life, make a simple commitment. The next time you are facing a challenge that feels immense and insurmountable, pause for just 60 seconds. Close your eyes if you can, mentally perform that zoom-out effect. Start with your immediate surroundings, then see your building, your town, your country. Imagine the curve of the Earth from space, and then the solar system as a tiny speck in the Milky Way galaxy, which is itself one of billions of galaxies. From that unimaginable distance, look back at your problem. Observe how its size and intensity seem to change. Then, bring your awareness back to the present moment, carrying with you that expanded, cosmic sense of scale. You will likely find that the problem has not disappeared, but your relationship to it has been permanently altered, becoming a little quieter, a little more manageable, and placed firmly within the grand and humbling theater of existence. We are trained from birth to want more. Our entire economy and social structure are built on this engine of perpetual desire. From the toy we cried for as a child to the latest smartphone model that feels essential as an adult, we live in a world that constantly whispers and sometimes shouts that happiness lies in the next acquisition, the next achievement, the next hit of external validation. Stoicism offers a radical alternative path, one that does not lead to deprivation but to a profound and lasting liberation. It is the path of wanting less but infinitely better. This is the sixth principle, the discipline of desire. It is not about crushing your wants into nothingness, but about refining them, about training your mind to desire only that which is truly good for you, which, to a Stoic, means that which is virtuous and within your control. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man who witnessed and participated in the greatest luxury of his age, saw through the emptiness of this endless chase with startling clarity. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Think about the depth of that statement. Poverty, in the Stoic sense, is not a condition of your bank account but a state of your soul. It is the insatiable hunger for the next thing, the restless feeling that you are not enough until you possess something you currently lack. This internal poverty creates a mental servitude, a tyranny where your sense of self is held hostage by the opinions of others and the whims of the marketplace. The discipline of desire is the practice of declaring independence from that tyranny. It asks you to perform a simple but profound audit of your wants. Take the classic modern example, the desire for a new car. Your current vehicle runs perfectly well. It gets you from point A to point B safely. But then you see an advertisement for a sleek new model, or a colleague pulls up in one, and the desire ignites. It promises status, admiration, a feeling of success. The conventional mind gets caught in this loop, perhaps taking on a burdensome car payment to feed the want. The Stoic, however, pauses to interrogate this desire. Is this new car within my complete control? No, its production, its availability, its cost are all external. Is the status and admiration it promises within my control? Absolutely not. Those are fickle gifts given by others. Will its attainment truly contribute to my virtue, to my wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance? It might provide a temporary comfort, but it does not make me wiser. It does not make me more courageous. In fact, the anxiety of the payment and the fear of damaging the new possession might actively work against my peace of mind, which is a component of temperance. The Stoic then refines the desire. Instead of wanting the car, they cultivate a desire for contentment with a functional vehicle. They desire the financial freedom that comes from not having a large monthly payment. They desire the mental clarity that comes from not tying their self-worth to a material object. This is what it means to want better. You shift your craving from the external and uncontrollable to the internal and entirely manageable. This applies with even greater force to the desire for external validation, the craving for likes, praise, and professional accolades. Chasing these is like drinking salt water. It only intensifies the thirst. Each hit of validation requires a bigger hit next time to produce the same feeling, trapping you in an exhausting cycle. The Stoic discipline redirects this energy. Instead of desiring praise, you desire to do praiseworthy work. Instead of wanting to be seen as successful, you want to act with integrity and skill in everything you do. The focus shifts from the uncontrollable reaction of the world to the fully controllable quality of your own actions. The outcome is a remarkable sense of freedom. When your happiness is no longer dependent on things you cannot command, you become unshakable. You can navigate both wealth and poverty with equanimity because your core worth is rooted in something that cannot be repossessed or devalued, your character. To begin integrating this discipline into your own life, take a moment for a powerful personal reflection. Identify one thing you intensely desire right now. It could be a physical object, a promotion, a certain number of social media followers, or a particular person's approval. Now hold that desire in your mind and ask yourself with complete honesty, if I attained this, would it genuinely make me a better, more virtuous person? Or would it simply provide a temporary pleasure, after which a new desire would inevitably arise to take its place? This act of questioning is not meant to create cynicism, but to create space. It is the first step in retraining your desires, in choosing to invest your deepest yearnings not in the fleeting treasures of the external world, but in the enduring fortress of your own virtuous character. Stoicism isn't a philosophy of retreat. It's a call to engage with the world, but on your own virtuous terms. After exploring how we manage our internal world and desires, we now turn outward to the sphere of our actions and their impact on the people around us. This is the seventh principle, the discipline of action, and it fundamentally reshapes our purpose in the world from one of solitary achievement to one of communal contribution. The Stoics envisioned the universe as a single, interconnected city, a cosmopolis, and saw every rational human being as a citizen of this global community. Our actions, therefore, carry a weight of responsibility. They are not merely transactions for personal benefit, but contributions to the overall health and harmony of this shared human project. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who bore the immense weight of governing this vast human community, constantly reminded himself of this duty. In his meditations, he wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." And elsewhere, he instructed himself, "You have been formed as a part of the whole. You will vanish into that which gave you birth, or rather, you will be taken up into its generative reason by a process of change." These are not the musings of a detached hermit, but the practical philosophy of the most powerful man in the world. He understood that his role was not to exploit his position for personal glory, but to serve as a rational, just, and benevolent part of the greater social organism. His success was inextricably linked to the welfare of the people he governed. This principle translates directly into our modern lives, especially in environments that often celebrate cutthroat competition. Let us take a clear business example. Imagine you are in a sales role, and you and a colleague are competing for a single, lucrative promotion. The conventional win-at-all-costs approach might involve hoarding leads, subtly undermining your colleague's efforts in meetings, or taking sole credit for collaborative work. On a superficial level, this might seem like the path to personal gain. The Stoic, however, evaluates this situation through the lens of the common good and the virtue of justice. Acting justly means giving each person their due. Your colleague is due respect and fair treatment as a fellow human being and citizen of your workplace community. The company itself is due your honest effort and integrity. The discipline of action would guide you to choose collaboration over ruthless competition. You might share a relevant lead with your colleague if it better suits their expertise. You would openly acknowledge their contributions in a team setting. You would compete by focusing on the excellence of your own work, not by sabotaging theirs. Why? Because this approach contributes to a rational and harmonious workplace. It builds trust, fosters a culture of mutual support, and ultimately creates a healthier, more productive environment for everyone, including yourself. Even if you do not get the promotion, you have succeeded in acting virtuously. You have strengthened your character as a just person, and you have upheld your duty to the common good of your professional hive. Your integrity remains intact, which is a far more valuable and lasting possession than any single job title. This extends far beyond the office. It applies to how we interact with strangers, how we participate in our neighborhoods, and how we consume resources. Holding a door for someone, letting a car merge in traffic, choosing to buy from a local business, or reducing your environmental footprint. These are all small but meaningful acts of the discipline of action. They are conscious choices to act for the benefit of the whole, recognizing that our individual well-being is woven into the fabric of the collective. To make this principle active in your own life today, I challenge you to a simple but profound task. Perform one small, completely anonymous act of kindness or fairness, purely for the sake of the common good. It could be leaving a positive note for a coworker to find without signing it, paying for the coffee of the person behind you in the drive-thru, or picking up litter in your local park without any expectation of thanks or recognition. The anonymity is crucial because it ensures the action is stripped of any personal reward, such as praise or reciprocation. You are doing it simply because it is the right thing to do, because it makes your small corner of the cosmopolis a slightly better, more harmonious place. This practice reinforces the core Stoic idea that virtuous action is its own reward, and it connects you directly to the timeless imperative to act as a responsible citizen of the world. What if regularly thinking about losing what you love could actually make you happier and more resilient? This sounds like a contradiction, a psychological paradox, but it lies at the heart of one of the most powerful and counterintuitive Stoic practices, negative visualization, known in Latin as premeditatio malorum, which means the premeditation of evils. This is not about cultivating a pessimistic outlook or dwelling on worst-case scenarios in a way that breeds anxiety. On the contrary, it is a deliberate mental exercise, a form of inoculation for the soul. Just as a vaccine introduces a small, weakened version of a virus to build your body's immunity, premeditatio malorum introduces a controlled dose of adversity to your mind to strengthen your emotional resilience and dramatically heighten your appreciation for the life you have right now. The Stoic philosopher Seneca, in his letters of consolation to friends facing grief and loss, emphasized this practice as a cornerstone of a tranquil life. He advised, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." And in another powerful passage he wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." The practice of negative visualization is the act of becoming willing, of walking hand in hand with reality rather than being surprised and crushed by it. By mentally rehearsing the potential loss of the people, possessions, and positions we hold dear, we accomplish two profound things. First, we rob future misfortunes of their element of shock and terror. When you have already visited a difficulty in your mind, when you have already walked its halls and felt its contours, its actual arrival feels less like a cataclysm and more like a familiar, albeit challenging, landscape. Second, and perhaps more immediately impactful, this practice ignites a profound sense of gratitude. It forces us to see the people and things in our lives not as permanent entitlements, but as temporary gifts, and that shift in perspective makes their presence all the more precious and beautiful. Let us make this intensely practical. Consider the modern anxiety of job security. You have a good job, a steady paycheck, and the comfort of a routine. Now, instead of pushing away the vague fear of losing it, you set aside 2 minutes to engage in a structured premeditatio malorum exercise. You close your eyes and vividly imagine receiving the news that your position has been eliminated. You feel the initial jolt, the tightening in your chest. You picture cleaning out your desk, saying goodbye to colleagues, and the silence of the first Monday morning without work to go to. But you do not stop at the panic. You press further as a Stoic would. You ask yourself, what would I actually do next? You would update your resume. You would reach out to your network. You would likely have to cut back on non-essential spending. You would have more time to spend with your family, or to finally work on that personal project you have been postponing. You mentally walk through the steps of resilience. In this visualization, you discover something crucial. You still have your skills, your health, your relationships, and your capacity for action. The job was a role, an external condition, but it was not the core of who you are. By facing its potential loss head-on, you accomplish 2 things. You diminish the fear of it actually happening because you have a mental game plan and the realization that you would endure. And when you open your eyes and return to the present moment, the fact that you still have your job feels like a bonus. The mundane aspects you took for granted, the purpose, the camaraderie, the routine, suddenly shimmer with a new significance. Your gratitude for your current employment is no longer theoretical. It is felt deeply in your bones. This practice can be applied to anything you value. Imagine for a moment the loss of your physical health, not to despair, but to truly feel the miracle of a body that functions without pain. Imagine the temporary loss of a dear friend or partner, not to invite sorrow, but to make you acutely aware of the incredible gift of their presence in your life today. The Stoics were not morose. They were masters of appreciation, and they knew that the surest way to treasure something is to consciously confront its fragility. To integrate this transformative tool into your own life, I invite you to try a simple but powerful exercise tonight. At the end of your day, just before you go to sleep, spend 2 minutes in quiet reflection. Choose one thing you felt genuinely grateful for today. It could be your partner's laughter, the comfort of your home, the taste of your morning coffee, or the function of your body. Now mentally play out the scenario of it being gone. If you chose your home, imagine it vanished and you are without that shelter. Sit with that feeling for a moment. Then open your eyes or simply shift your focus back to the present reality, where your home is still there, safe and warm. Feel the wave of appreciation that washes over you. This is not a depressing ritual. It is a practice that actively manufactures gratitude and fortitude. It is the mental training that ensures you never take the gifts of your life for granted, and that you are always prepared with a calm and resilient heart for whatever the future may hold. How much of your mental energy is spent reliving the past or anxiously anticipating a future that hasn't arrived? We often treat our own minds like time machines, constantly dialing the controls to a yesterday we cannot change or a tomorrow that exists only as a thought. This mental time travel is not just exhausting, it actively robs us of the only reality we ever truly possess, the present moment. For the Stoics, this was not a vague spiritual suggestion. It was a precise and practical point of logic. The past is a set of frozen events already written and completely outside your control. The future is a realm of pure potential, shaped by countless variables you cannot command. The only slice of time where your will has any actual power, where your reason can engage with the world, and where your virtue can be expressed through action, is right now. This present moment is the field of action. It is the only arena in which you can actually live your life. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, amidst the colossal pressures of ruling an empire, constantly directed his attention back to this fundamental truth. He wrote in his private journal, "Confine yourself to the present." In another passage, he elaborates, "Don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole." Don't try to picture everything bad that could possibly happen. Stick with the situation at hand and ask, why is this so unbearable? Why can't I endure it? His use of the word confine is powerful. It suggests that our attention naturally wants to spill out, to wander into the regrets of the past and the fears of the future. The Stoic practice is to build a gentle but firm boundary around the now, to corral our mental resources and deploy them entirely on the person or task directly in front of us. This is not a passive, Zen-like state of blank awareness. Stoic presence is intensely active. It is about bringing your full rational faculty to bear on the current situation. It is the difference between worrying about a future presentation and focusing solely on preparing for it, one step at a time in the present. Let's unpack that common scenario. You have a major presentation in 1 week. The future-oriented mind leaps ahead to the moment of delivery. It imagines stuttering, pictures critical faces in the audience, and spirals into anxiety about the potential for failure and embarrassment. This is mental energy being spent on a phantom, a story you are telling yourself about an event that does not yet exist. The result is paralyzing fear in the present, which ironically sabotages the very preparation you need to do. The Stoic, recognizing this trap, makes a conscious pivot. They apply the dichotomy of control, the presentation's reception outside their control, the opinions of the audience. Outside their control, the quality of their preparation right here, right now, entirely within their control, so they confine themselves to the present task. They break down the monumental project of giving a great presentation into a series of tiny, present-moment actions. For this hour, my only job is to research this one statistic with focus. For the next 30 minutes, my only task is to draft the introduction to the second slide. By anchoring their attention in the actionable present, they transform an overwhelming, anxiety-producing future event into a manageable sequence of concrete steps. The anxiety doesn't vanish, but it loses its power because the mind is too occupied with the constructive work of the now to feed it. This principle applies to every corner of our lives. A difficult conversation with a loved one becomes infinitely more manageable when you stop rehearsing every possible thing they might say and instead focus entirely on listening to the words they are actually speaking in this moment. A long-term fitness goal feels less daunting when you stop obsessing over the number on the scale 6 months from now and instead pour your full attention into the sensation of your body moving through the current repetition, feeling the muscles engage and the breath flow. The present moment is where life is actually lived, where decisions are made, and where character is forged. To cultivate this skill, it requires training the mind, much like you would train a muscle. It begins with the seemingly mundane, so here is a simple but profound challenge for you today. Choose one routine, automatic activity you perform every day. It could be washing the dishes, walking your dog, drinking your morning coffee, or even brushing your teeth. For the duration of that activity, commit to doing it with your full, undivided attention. When you wash the dishes, feel the temperature of the water on your skin. Notice the texture of the plate and the scent of the soap. When you walk, feel the connection of your feet with the ground. Observe the colors and shapes in your environment without labeling or judging them. Your mind will inevitably wander to a past regret or a future worry. That is completely normal. The practice is not to achieve perfect focus, but to notice when you have drifted and to gently, without self-criticism, guide your attention back to the sensory reality of the present task. This is not about achieving culinary excellence in dishwashing. It is about building the neural pathways that allow you to anchor yourself in the field of action. Each time you guide your attention back to the now, you are strengthening your ability to show up for your life as it happens, not as you fear it might be or regret that it was. You are learning to inhabit the only time and place where you can truly make a difference. The single most powerful tool for creating a meaningful life is to remember that it will end. This is the essence of Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to remember you must die. At first glance, this might sound dark, morbid, or even frightening, a practice fixated on the very thing our culture spends billions of dollars and endless energy trying to ignore, delay, and conceal. But for the Stoics, this was not a thought of despair. It was a lucid, liberating, and profoundly practical technique to ignite urgency, inject clarity, and strip away the trivial distractions that so often consume our days. It is the ultimate prioritization filter. The philosopher Seneca, in his moral letters to his friend Lucilius, confronts this truth with characteristic force. He writes, "He who has learned to die has unlearned to be a slave," and in an even more direct passage he observes, "You are afraid of dying, but come now, how is this life of yours anything but death?" Seneca is not being grim, he is performing a strategic intervention on the mind. He points out that a life lived in fear of the end, or in denial of it, is a form of slavery, a servitude to procrastination, to other people's opinions, and to shallow pursuits. The person who has truly internalized their mortality, however, is freed from those chains. They understand that death is not a single event in the distant future, but a process that is happening right now. As Seneca notes, we are dying every day. Each moment that passes is a tiny death, a piece of our allotted time that is gone forever. This realization is the antidote to the quiet tragedy of postponement. We tell ourselves we will start that business, repair that relationship, or dedicate ourselves to that passion someday, when the conditions are perfect. Memento Mori shatters that illusion. It shouts that someday is a myth, and that the only time we ever have to live virtuously and fully is in the continuous, fleeting present. Let's make this intensely concrete by examining two different approaches to a single, ordinary evening. Imagine it is a Tuesday night after a long day of work. One person, with their mortality tucked away in a distant, abstract part of their mind, collapses onto the sofa. The phone comes out and the infinite scroll begins. Minutes, then hours, dissolve into a passive stream of social media comparisons, celebrity gossip, and viral videos. There is no malice in this. It is a default mode, a way to numb the fatigue of the day. But it is also, in the stark light of Memento Mori, a form of squandering. Contrast this with the evening of someone who has consciously held the thought of their finite time on earth. This does not mean they spend the night in solemn meditation on death. It means the awareness of life's brevity influences their choices. Knowing their time with their children is limited, they might choose to play a board game or read a story together, fully present for the laughter and connection. Valuing their own growth, they might spend an hour reading a book that challenges their mind or practicing a skill they are passionate about. Or, honoring their need for genuine rest, they might have a deep, uninterrupted conversation with their partner, or simply sit in quiet reflection, recharging their spirit in a way that mindless consumption never can. The evening is the same length for both people. The difference lies in the quality and intention behind how those precious, irreplaceable hours are spent. One path leads to a vague sense of time lost, of another day blurring into the next. The other path, guided by the remembrance of death, leads to a life rich with purpose and connection, where even a simple Tuesday night becomes a meaningful part of a well-lived whole. This practice forces a ruthless clarity onto our lives. It compels us to distinguish between the urgent and the important, between the noise and the signal. The trivial anxieties that can dominate our minds, the worry about a slightly critical comment, the frustration over a minor inconvenience, lose their power when held against the backdrop of our mortality. They are revealed for what they are, background static in a symphony that is finite and beautiful. So, let us bring this principle to a point of personal application. I want you to pause and truly sit with this question, not as a hypothetical, but as a serious inquiry into your own life. If you knew with absolute certainty that you had 1 year left to live, what would you stop doing immediately? Be brutally honest, you would likely stop scrolling through endless feeds, stop attending meetings that have no real purpose, stop wasting energy on petty grievances and resentment, and stop people-pleasing at the cost of your own integrity. Now, what would you start? You would probably start having the courageous conversations you have been avoiding. You would start dedicating time to the creative project you have always dreamed of. You would start savoring simple moments with the people you love, making sure they felt your appreciation deeply and often. The power of Memento Mori is that you do not actually need a terminal diagnosis to live this way. You can choose, starting today, to act as if your time is precious and limited because it is. This remembrance is not a morbid obsession with the end, but a vibrant, passionate commitment to the quality of every single moment you are given. History offers a powerful portrait of this principle in the figure of Cato the Younger, a Roman senator whose entire life became a testament to turning opposition into strength. In an era of civil war and rising dictatorship under Julius Caesar, Cato chose defiance not because he believed he could win, but because he believed the act of resistance itself was a victory for the Republic's ideals. His stubborn, principled stand against tyranny, even in the face of certain defeat and his subsequent suicide, was not a failure. For the Stoics who came after him, Cato's life became the ultimate example of using an impossible obstacle as the very stage upon which to demonstrate unyielding courage and integrity. His defeat in the political arena was, in the Stoic view, his greatest triumph of character. This embodies the 11th principle, a concept that takes the acceptance of Amor Fati and injects it with proactive, determined energy. The obstacle is the way. It is the realization that the barrier in your path is not a detour from your journey. It is an essential part of the path itself. It is the raw material you have been given to build your strength and prove your virtue. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who faced his own endless stream of military and political impediments, formulated this idea with stunning clarity. He wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Let that sink in for a moment. The thing blocking you is not just something to be overcome, it is the very mechanism of your progress. A wall is not a stop sign. It is an invitation to build a ladder, to tunnel underneath, or to find a hidden door you would never have searched for on an open plain. The obstacle does not just test your resolve, it actively creates the conditions for your growth. Every single barrier you encounter is a specific invitation to exercise a particular virtue. A frustrating delay is an invitation to practice patience. A complex, seemingly unsolvable problem is an invitation to cultivate creativity and wisdom. A frightening risk is an invitation to summon courage. A difficult person is an invitation to practice understanding and justice. This philosophy completely reframes our definition of a problem. We are conditioned to see problems as negative interruptions to the smooth flow of our plans. The Stoic, however, sees a problem as the point of the plan. It is the training ground where your character is forged. Without the resistance of the barbell, your muscles cannot grow stronger. Without the friction of the road, your tires cannot grip and propel you forward. In the same way, without the obstacles of life, your resilience, your patience, and your courage remain undeveloped and weak. Consider the journey of a modern entrepreneur. Imagine a visionary founder with a brilliant idea for a new tech company. They create a pitch deck full of passion and conviction and present it to 100 venture capital firms. They receive 100 rejections. From a conventional perspective, this is a catastrophic failure, a clear sign that the idea is flawed or that they are not cut out for this world. It is a massive, demoralizing obstacle, but the entrepreneur who understands that the obstacle is the way does not crumble. They see the 100 rejections not as a verdict on their dream, but as critical data. This obstacle is forcing them to advance their action. It is compelling them to build a leaner, more efficient business model that does not rely on massive external funding. It is pushing them to get creative with their marketing, to bootstrap, to listen more closely to early users, and to refine their product until it is so undeniably good that it cannot be ignored. The initial plan, get funded, scale fast, has been blocked, but the obstacle itself has become the way forward, a path that leads to a more resilient, customer-focused, and ultimately more successful company. The rejections did not stop the journey, they defined a better, tougher route. This principle applies with just as much force to our personal lives. That difficult family member is not an error in your life script. They are your personal trainer for the virtue of patience and compassion. A period of financial constraint is not merely a time of lack. It is a masterclass in resourcefulness and a forced clarification of what you truly value. A sudden illness can be a brutal but effective teacher, reorienting your priorities toward health, relationships, and the profound beauty of an ordinary day. The obstacle is not the enemy. It is the coach, the trainer, the raw material. Your job is not to wish it away, but to engage with it, to wrestle with it, and to allow it to shape you into a stronger, wiser, and more virtuous version of yourself. To put this into practice right now, take a moment to identify one current obstacle in your own life. It might be a project at work that feels stalled, a personal goal that seems out of reach, or a recurring source of frustration in a relationship. Now actively reframe it. Do not see it as a problem. See it as your designated training ground. Ask yourself, what specific virtue is this obstacle inviting me to develop? If it is a stalled project, perhaps it is a training ground for perseverance and creative problem solving. If it is a difficult relationship, perhaps it is a training ground for empathy and clear communication. By shifting your perspective in this way, you transform the obstacle from a source of stress into a source of purpose. You are no longer a victim of circumstance being blocked by a wall. You are a student of life, being given the materials to build a ladder. Between any event and your reaction, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom and your power. This tiny, almost imperceptible gap is the very heart of the 12th Stoic principle, the discipline of suspending judgment. It is the practical, moment-to-moment mechanism that brings the dichotomy of control to life within your own mind, transforming you from a puppet jerked around by your impulses into the conscious author of your responses. The ancient teacher Epictetus, whose words cut to the core of human psychology, gave us the fundamental insight. men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Think about the profound truth contained in that single sentence. The event itself is neutral. It is just data entering your awareness. The disturbance, the anger, the anxiety, the hurt does not live in the event. It is born in the milliseconds that follow. In the automatic, often unconscious story you instantly tell yourself about what that event means. The practice of judgment suspension is the act of guarding that space, of inserting a deliberate pause between the stimulus and your response, so that you can examine that initial impression with the cool light of reason before you give it your assent and allow it to dictate your emotions and actions. This is not about suppressing emotions, it is about understanding their source and choosing whether they are serving you. Your initial impression is like a newspaper headline shouted by a panicked newsboy. It is loud, attention-grabbing, and designed to provoke an immediate reaction. The Stoic practice is to not buy the paper based on the headline alone. You pause, you take the paper, and you read the full article with a critical eye. Is the headline accurate? Is it the whole story? Is there another, more rational interpretation of the facts? By doing this, you move from being a passive consumer of your own thoughts to an active editor. Let's bring this to life with a scenario everyone can recognize. You are driving home after a long day, your mind already leaning toward the comfort of your home. Suddenly, a car swerves into your lane, cutting you off so sharply that you have to slam on your brakes. The initial impression is a lightning bolt of pure physical reaction. Your heart hammers, your grip tightens on the wheel, and a surge of anger floods your system. The unconscious judgment that forms in that split second is a story of personal affront. That idiot did that to me on purpose. He has no respect. He could have killed me. This judgment feels absolutely true, and it triggers the corresponding emotional and physical cascade. You might honk your horn aggressively, shout something you would not say in a calm moment, or even tailgate the other driver in a burst of retaliatory rage. You have been hijacked by an unexamined impression. Now, let's replay that scenario with the Stoic pause activated. The car cuts you off. The initial jolt of fear and anger still arises. That is a physiological reaction that is largely outside your immediate control. But before that jolt can translate into a horn honk or a shouted curse, you create a space. You take one deep, conscious breath. In that space, you become the editor of the news headline. You examine the initial judgment. You ask, is it absolutely true that this person did this to me personally? Almost certainly not. They are likely distracted, stressed, or simply a poor driver who did not see me. Is my judgment that they are an idiot helpful? Does it improve the situation or simply amplify my own distress? You then search for a more rational, less personal interpretation of the event. Perhaps the driver is a parent rushing to a sick child, or someone who just received terrible news and is not fully present. Perhaps it was a simple, careless mistake, the kind you yourself have made on a distracted day. This cognitive reframing does not excuse the dangerous action, but it completely defangs the personal insult you originally felt. The event shifts from a malicious attack to a neutral occurrence involving a fallible human being. From this calmer, more rational place, your response can be different. You might still tap your horn as a quick safety signal, but it is not a scream of rage. You then consciously let it go, releasing the tension in your shoulders and returning your focus to your own safe driving. The other driver's action was outside your control. Your judgment about that action and your subsequent response were entirely within it. By suspending your initial judgment, you reclaimed your power and your peace in a situation that could have ruined the next hour of your day. This practice is the micro work of building emotional resilience. It is how you stop being a reactor and start being a responder. To make this a living part of your own life, I offer you a concrete and manageable challenge. Tomorrow, make it your mission to consciously create that pause at least 3 separate times before reacting to a minor annoyance. It could be when you spill a little coffee, when you receive a slightly terse email, or when you are waiting in a line that is moving too slowly. In each instance, when you feel the first flicker of irritation, stop, take one breath. In that breath, simply notice the initial judgment forming. This is so inconvenient. This person is being rude. This shouldn't be happening. Acknowledge the thought and then gently question it. Is this thought absolutely true? Is it the only way to see this? Then, choose your response from that slightly more spacious and aware place. This is not about achieving perfection, but about practicing the skill of interception. Each time you succeed, you are strengthening your mind's ability to choose freedom over automaticity and power over reactivity. Think of a vast, ancient forest. A towering tree falls in a part of the woods where no human ever walks. It seems like an isolated event, a solitary end. Yet, that fallen trunk becomes a nursery for new seedlings. Its decaying matter nourishes the soil for fungi and insects, and the new gap in the canopy allows sunlight to reach struggling plants below, transforming the entire microenvironment. This is not just a scene from nature. It is a perfect picture of a profound Stoic principle known as sympatheia, the belief that the entire cosmos is a single, living, rational organism, and that every single part, including you, is woven into an intricate and inseparable whole. Nothing happens in a vacuum. Every event, no matter how small, is a thread in a vast, interconnected tapestry, and each thread has a purpose within the grand design. For the Stoics, this was not a poetic metaphor but a fundamental fact of existence. The universe operates according to a divine reason, a logos, and we, as rational beings, are literal fragments of that cosmic intelligence. This perspective is powerfully articulated by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who constantly reminded himself of his place within this greater unity. He wrote in his Meditations, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." In another passage he reflects, "Meditate often on the interconnectedness and mutual interdependence of all things in the universe." For in a way, all things are mutually woven together and therefore have a fondness for each other. This sense of mutual weaving is the essence of sympatheia. When you internalize this concept, it fundamentally shifts your experience of the world. The feeling of isolation, of being a lone individual battling against an indifferent universe, begins to dissolve. You realize you are not a separate drop in the ocean, but an integral part of the ocean itself. You belong. This belonging fosters a deep sense of responsibility and encourages a natural inclination toward cooperation over conflict. If the universe is one body, then causing harm to another is as irrational as your right hand deliberately cutting your left. Understanding this interconnectedness transforms our approach to daily life and our role within our communities. Consider the human body. A single heart cell does not exist for its own solitary purpose. Its entire reason for being, its function and its health, is defined by its contribution to the heart, which in turn serves the lungs, the brain, and the entire body. The cell thrives only when it acts in harmony with the whole system. In the same way, sympatheia teaches that an individual human being finds their highest purpose and fulfillment not in isolated self-interest, but in contributing to the health and harmony of their larger communities, be it their family, their company, their city, or the entire human race. Let us make this intensely practical. Imagine you are part of a team at work. The conventional, individualistic mindset might see a colleague's success as a threat or a rival's achievement. It might lead to hoarding information or subtly undermining others to get ahead. But viewed through the lens of sympatheia, this is as counterproductive as one group of cells in your body deciding to starve another group of oxygen. The health of the individual is tied to the health of the whole organization. When you choose to share a useful piece of information with a teammate, when you offer genuine praise for a job well done, or when you help a struggling colleague, you are not just being nice. You are acting as a rational cell within a larger body. You are strengthening the entire system, which in turn creates a more supportive, innovative, and successful environment that benefits everyone, including yourself. This is not naive idealism, it is practical wisdom. A company where employees actively support one another is more resilient, more adaptable, and ultimately more successful than one riddled with internal competition and distrust. Your virtuous action of cooperation and justice strengthens the corporate body, and a healthy body provides a better environment for all its cells to flourish. This principle extends far beyond the office walls. The food you choose to buy ripples out to affect farmers, distributors, and the environment. The way you speak to a customer service agent influences their day, which then affects their interactions with their family when they go home. The patience you show in traffic by not contributing to road rage creates a slightly calmer, safer environment for everyone sharing the road with you. Every action sends out a wave, however small, through the interconnected web of human existence. To make this concept personal and immediate, take a moment for a quiet reflection. Think back over the last 24 hours and identify one small, seemingly insignificant action you took. It could have been holding a door open for a stranger, offering a word of encouragement to a friend, or even just completing a task at work with diligence and care. Now trace the potential ripple effects of that single action. The person for whom you held the door might have been having a terrible day, and that small gesture of courtesy lifted their spirit just enough to make them smile at the next person they met, creating a chain of improved moods. The word of encouragement you gave might have given your friend the confidence to take a step they were fearing. The diligent work you did might have made a colleague's task easier down the line, reducing their stress. You will never know the full extent of the waves you create, but by contemplating sympatheia, you become conscious that you are constantly contributing, for better or worse, to the quality of the whole. This awareness is the foundation of a truly ethical and connected life, where every choice is made with the understanding that we are all mutually woven together. In a world of constant comfort, we have become fragile. Our homes are climate-controlled, our meals are available on demand, and our entertainment is an endless, effortless scroll. While these conveniences are not evils in themselves, they have created a hidden vulnerability, a quiet atrophy of our ability to endure hardship. The Stoics diagnosed this condition long ago, and they prescribed a powerful, counterintuitive remedy: regular, self-imposed doses of intentional discomfort. Think of it not as self-punishment, but as a psychological vaccine. Just as a vaccine introduces a weakened virus to build immunity in the body, voluntary hardship introduces a manageable challenge to build resilience in the soul. This is the 14th principle, the practice of poverty, a deliberate training regimen designed to prove to yourself, in the most visceral way possible, that your happiness and your capacity for a good life do not depend on the external conditions of soft beds, warm food, or constant entertainment. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man of immense wealth, was a passionate advocate for this practice. He argued that we must periodically become our own strict auditors. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" His point was not to live in perpetual deprivation, but to inoculate the mind against the terror of losing its comforts. By voluntarily experiencing a simpler, harder life for a short time, you conduct a powerful experiment. You demonstrate to your own anxious mind that you can, in fact, endure it. You break the subconscious chain that links your sense of well-being to a specific set of material circumstances. Another Stoic teacher, Musonius Rufus, took this even further, arguing that comfort itself could be a trap. He taught that pursuing a life of luxury actually made a person weaker, while embracing hardship built strength, health, and even a kind of moral vigor. For him, practicing poverty was the ultimate way to overcome the fear of it, transforming a potential source of future terror into a familiar, manageable state. This practice is not about proving how tough you are. It is about expanding your circle of what is acceptable, thereby shrinking the power that external events have over your inner peace. So, what does this ancient training look like in our modern context? It is far more accessible and practical than you might imagine. It does not require you to sell all your possessions and live in a barrel like the famous cynic Diogenes. It is about finding small, strategic ways to interrupt the automatic flow of comfort in your daily life. One powerful modern equivalent is the concept of a digital Sabbath. For one day a week, or even for a few hours each evening, you voluntarily disconnect from the constant stream of notifications, social media, and digital entertainment. The initial discomfort is real: the boredom, the fidgeting, the feeling of being out of the loop, but in that space of silence, something remarkable happens. Your mind, freed from the constant input, begins to reset. You might find yourself engaging in a real conversation, reading a book with deep focus, or simply sitting with your own thoughts, rediscovering a capacity for stillness that you had forgotten. Another simple practice is to deliberately choose a less comfortable option in your daily routine. Take public transportation instead of driving your climate-controlled car, exposing yourself to the minor unpredictability of schedules and the presence of strangers. Take a cold shower for the final 30 seconds of your morning routine, not as a masochistic act, but as a daily, minute-long exercise in willingly embracing a sensation you would normally avoid. Sleep on a firmer surface for a night, or even just on the floor in a sleeping bag, to reconnect with the feeling of simplicity and to make your own bed feel like a profound luxury the following night. The goal of all these exercises is the same: to break the unconscious grip of habit and comfort. It is to remind your nervous system that you are the one in charge, not your desire for ease. Each time you voluntarily choose a small discomfort and discover that you are perfectly fine on the other side of it, you deposit a little more courage into your psychological bank account. You are building a reserve of resilience that you can draw upon when life inevitably throws an involuntary hardship your way, a financial setback, a period of intense work, or an unexpected physical challenge. To begin integrating this transformative practice into your own life, I invite you to a simple but revealing experiment. For the next 24 hours, choose one small, daily comfort that you will voluntarily go without. It does not need to be dramatic. Perhaps it is your favorite morning snack, opting for a plainer alternative. Maybe it is the warmth of your shower, turning the dial to cool for the last minute. It could be the background noise of music or a podcast while you work, replacing it with silence. The key is to choose something tangible and routine. As you go through this day without that comfort, pay close attention to your internal reactions. Observe the initial impulse of resistance. Notice any feelings of lack or mild annoyance. But then watch even more closely for the moment that follows. You will likely discover that the world does not end. Your capacity for a good day remains intact. The absence of that one thing creates a space where you can more clearly see and appreciate the thousand other things that support your life. This act of voluntary refusal is not an act of rejection, but one of reclamation, a quiet, powerful declaration that your happiness is an internal production and that you are its unwavering source. Who is the person, real or imagined, whose judgment you would want presiding over your most difficult choices? This is not a question about finding a perfect human being who never made a mistake, but about identifying a North Star for your own character, a living example of the virtues you wish to embody. In the Stoic framework, this is the practice of following the sage, a powerful mental technique where you invoke the presence of an ideal wise person or a historical figure of impeccable integrity to guide your actions in moments of confusion, temptation, or stress. It is about giving your abstract philosophical principles a face and a voice, transforming them from concepts in a book into a constant, internal counsel. The goal is to create a concrete standard to aspire to, a calibrated compass for your moral and practical decisions that always points toward wisdom. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius provides the ultimate historical example of this practice in action. His private journal, Meditations, is filled with direct addresses to himself where he recalls the finest qualities of the mentors and family members in his life. He did not just admire them from a distance, he actively channeled their character. He writes, "From my grandfather Verus, a kindly disposition and sweetness of temper." And from his adoptive father, Emperor Antoninus Pius, he lists a whole catalogue of virtues, gentleness, and an unshakable adherence to judgments arrived at after due consideration, and no vainglory about the so-called honors, and a love of work and thoroughness. He was not building statues to perfect people. He was collecting the best traits from real individuals to construct an internal composite of an ideal sage. He would then use this composite as a benchmark, asking himself in a difficult situation, "What would Antoninus do?" or "How would my teachers advise me here?" This practice turns philosophy from a passive study into an active dialogue. Let us bring this into a modern context with a pressing scenario. Imagine you are a mid-level manager and you discover that a senior executive has subtly encouraged you to fudge some data on a quarterly report to make the division's performance look stronger. The implication is clear. Complying will put you in the executive's good graces and likely fast-track your career. Refusing could isolate you and potentially stall your progress. The pressure is immense, and the path of least resistance is to just go along. This is the precise moment to activate the Stoic practice of the sage. You pause, create a mental space, and consciously invoke your chosen role model. Perhaps for you, that figure is Marcus Aurelius himself. You ask, what would Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who prized justice and duty above all, do in this situation? The answer becomes clear almost instantly. He would not compromise his integrity for career advancement. He would see the action as a betrayal of his role, a corruption of his duty to the truth and to the health of the company as a whole. His internal compass would point unerringly toward honesty, regardless of the personal cost. Or perhaps your role model is a beloved grandparent known for their unwavering honesty, or a former teacher whose fairness you always admired. The specific figure matters less than the virtues they represent. By projecting their judgment onto your dilemma, you bypass the frantic calculations of short-term gain and tap into a deeper, more reliable source of wisdom. Your decision is no longer just about you and your fear. It is about living up to a standard that is greater than your immediate circumstances. This practice provides immense psychological strength. It externalizes the internal conflict, making it a choice between aligning with your sage or betraying their example. the fear of external consequences begins to pale in comparison to the internal consequence of failing your own chosen standard of excellence. It is a way of borrowing courage and clarity from the best of humanity, past and present, when your own reserves feel low. To make this a tangible part of your own life today, let's engage in a simple but profound exercise. Take a moment to clearly define 3 to 5 core virtues that you most admire in a role model. Do not just list names, identify the specific qualities. Your list might include unshakable integrity, calm courage in adversity, profound compassion, disciplined focus, or unwavering fairness. Now, for the rest of today, make a conscious commitment. In one single decision you face, whether it is a work-related email, a conversation with a family member, or even how you choose to spend your free time, actively ask yourself which of these virtues applies. Then make a deliberate effort to embody that specific quality in your action. If you chose calm courage and you have to have a difficult conversation, your goal is not to avoid the conversation or to win it, but to enter it with a calm and courageous spirit. If you chose disciplined focus and you are tempted to scroll on your phone, your goal is to consciously redirect that time to a more meaningful activity. This is not about perfection, it is about practice. Each time you consciously align an action with a chosen virtue, you are not just making a decision, you are sculpting your character. You are installing the sage as a permanent resident in your own mind, ensuring that their wisdom is always on call to guide you through the complexities of modern life. The most successful people don't just work hard, they audit their days with ruthless honesty. This is the essence of the 16th Stoic principle, a transformative daily ritual known as the evening review. While our modern world encourages us to rush forward, to constantly plan for the next day, the next goal, the next achievement, the Stoics understood that genuine progress is impossible without a moment of stillness and reflection. This practice is not about creating a ledger of your failures to punish yourself. It is about becoming a gentle but objective scientist of your own soul, using the raw data of your daily life to chart a wiser, more virtuous course forward. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man immersed in the political whirlwind of ancient Rome, was a dedicated practitioner of this art. In his moral letters, he reveals his nightly routine with striking clarity, writing, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." He goes on to explain, "I say to myself, see that you don't do that again. I'll excuse you this time." This passage captures the perfect tone of the evening review. It is conducted in quiet solitude, it is comprehensive, and its spirit is one of constructive correction, not self-flagellation. Seneca is not whipping himself for his errors. He is having a firm but compassionate conversation with himself, acknowledging a misstep and making a clear resolution for future improvement. This is how raw, often chaotic experience is systematically processed and transformed into durable, personal wisdom. It is the ultimate act of turning your life into your teacher. To make this ancient practice immediately accessible, let's walk through a simple, powerful 3-question format you can begin using tonight. The entire process need not take more than 5 minutes, but its impact over time is profound. First, ask yourself, what did I do well today? This is not about feeding your ego, but about recognizing and reinforcing virtuous behavior. Perhaps you managed to pause before sending an angry email, exercising the discipline of judgment suspension. Maybe you offered genuine help to a colleague without any expectation of reward, practicing the discipline of action for the common welfare. Or perhaps you simply maintained a calm demeanor during a stressful commute, a small but significant victory for your inner citadel. Acknowledging these successes is crucial. It tells your mind, this is the direction we want to go. More of this, please. The second question requires a bit more courage. Where did I act against my principles? Approach this with the detached curiosity of a researcher. Not, I am a terrible person, but fascinating. Here is an instance where my actions deviated from my stated values. Did you lose your temper with a customer service agent, allowing a passion to override your reason? Did you waste an hour scrolling through social media when you had committed to reading or working on a personal project, a failure in the discipline of desire? Did you withhold praise from someone who deserved it, acting against the virtue of justice? The key is to identify the specific moment and the specific principle that was challenged. This is not about creating a list of sins. It is about gathering precise data on where your character needs strengthening. Finally, and most importantly, you ask, how can I improve tomorrow? This is where you close the loop and turn reflection into resolution. Based on the data you have gathered, you form a simple, actionable plan for the next day. If you identified a loss of temper as the issue, your resolution might be, tomorrow, when I feel frustration rising, I will take 3 deep breaths before I speak. If you noted a waste of time, your plan could be, I will leave my phone in another room for the first hour after work to focus on my project. This final step transforms the review from a passive accounting exercise into an active training regimen for your character. You are not just observing your life, you are actively directing its course. The power of this practice lies in its consistency, not its duration. To prove its value to yourself, I encourage you to make a small but meaningful commitment. For just the next 3 consecutive evenings, set aside 5 minutes before you go to sleep. Find a quiet space free from distraction and walk yourself through these 3 questions. You do not even need to write anything down, though a small journal can deepen the process. Simply sit with your day, review it with gentle honesty, and set one small intention for the following day. You will likely find that this simple act does more than just help you improve. It brings a profound sense of closure to the day, allowing you to lay its burdens down and rest with a clearer, more peaceful mind, ready to meet the dawn with a renewed sense of purpose. What if the ultimate success was not needing to feel successful? This question strikes at the very heart of our modern obsession with outcomes, where our self-worth is so often tied to a promotion, a winning quarter, or the number of likes on a post. We ride an exhausting emotional roller coaster, soaring with every bit of praise and plunging into despair with each piece of criticism. The 17th Stoic principle offers a radical alternative to this turbulent existence, the cultivation of equanimity. This is the practice of maintaining an even-minded, rational state regardless of whether you are being celebrated or criticized, winning or losing. It is not a state of emotional flatness or apathy, but a profound and steady inner calm that comes from knowing your true value is untouchable by external events. This is the natural, practical result of having fully internalized the core Stoic teaching that virtue is the sole good. When you know in your bones that your character is the only thing of real and lasting value, the shifting winds of fortune simply lose their power to capsize your soul. The great teacher Epictetus, who himself endured the external condition of slavery, painted a powerful image for this state of being. He said the wise person is like a rock that the waves crash against. It stands unmoved while the fury of the water subsides around it. Think about that visual. The rock does not fight the waves. It does not celebrate when the water is calm or despair when the storm hits. Its strength and its identity are inherent, built into its very substance. The waves of success and failure, praise and blame, are simply external phenomena that happen to it, not because of it. The rock remains steadfast and whole. This is the equanimity we strive for, not by becoming cold or unfeeling, but by becoming so rooted in our own principled nature that the weather of external opinion cannot erode us. Consider the stark contrast in the modern professional world. On one side, you have the individual who has tied their entire sense of self to their job title and their quarterly results. When they close a big deal or receive public recognition, they are euphoric. They feel like a winner, a person of immense value, but this high is terrifyingly fragile. When the next project fails or a critical review comes in, that entire edifice of self-worth crumbles. They feel like a fraud, a failure. This constant oscillation between grandiosity and despair is not only emotionally draining, it leads directly to burnout. Their performance becomes erratic, dictated by the emotional whiplash of their latest outcome. Their decision-making becomes reactive, driven by a desperate need to recapture the high or avoid the next low. Now picture their colleague who has embraced the Stoic ideal of equanimity. This person pours the same immense effort into their work. They are diligent, creative, and ethical. The key difference is what happens after the effort is expended. When they succeed, they accept the result with quiet gratitude, but they do not inflate their ego with it. They see the success as a preferred indifferent, a welcome outcome, certainly, but one that does not define them. They know the victory was partly due to factors outside their control, market timing, a teammate's contribution, or simple luck. Their focus remains on the quality of their own effort and conduct. Conversely, when a project fails, they meet the result with the same analytical calm. They do not collapse into self-recrimination. Instead, they dispassionately examine the process. Where was my effort sufficient? Where could my strategy have been wiser? Did I act with integrity throughout? They extract the lesson, make a note for future improvement, and then let the outcome go. This steady, unwavering focus on their own virtuous effort alone creates a consistency of performance that is far more valuable and reliable over the long term than any temporary spike driven by emotional highs. This person is not burned out because their energy source is internal and renewable, their commitment to acting with excellence and virtue, rather than external and fickle, the next hit of validation. To truly feel the power of this principle, let's bring it into your own experience. I want you to take a moment and recall a recent win in your life. It could be something significant like a professional achievement, or something smaller like receiving a compliment. Now, recall a recent loss, a project that did not go as planned, a criticism you received, a personal goal you missed. First, bring the win to mind. Observe the feelings it brings up, the pride, the satisfaction. Now, practice a detached analysis. Acknowledge the role your effort played, but also acknowledge the external factors that helped, the support of others, fortunate circumstances, timing. See the victory not as a testament to your inherent worth, but as a welcome event that occurred. Then, let the emotional charge around it soften. Now, bring the loss to mind. Observe the feelings that arise: disappointment, frustration, perhaps shame. Now, apply the same detached analysis. Look at the situation not as a verdict on you as a person, but as a single event. Where was your effort? Did you act in accordance with your principles? What can you learn from the outcome? See the loss not as a reflection of your core self, but as an external result that provides data for future growth. The goal of this exercise is not to eliminate feeling, but to create space between you and the feeling. It is to realize that you are not your wins and you are not your losses. You are the conscious being who chooses how to respond to both. By practicing this emotional equidistance, you begin to build that unshakable rock within yourself, a foundation of calm that allows you to engage fully with the world without being broken by its constantly changing tides. The Roman philosopher Seneca opens his powerful essay on the shortness of life with a statement that stops you in your tracks. Life is long if you know how to use it. He immediately follows with the devastating conclusion, but we are not poor in years, only wasteful of them. This is not merely a poetic observation, it is a stark diagnosis of a universal human condition. We constantly complain that there are not enough hours in the day, yet we fail to see that we are the ones who have frittered those hours away on pursuits that leave no meaningful trace on our character or our legacy. The Stoics viewed time as the one truly non-renewable resource. You can recover lost money, you can regain your health, you can mend a broken relationship, but a single moment, once it has passed, is gone forever. This principle takes the general awareness of our mortality from Memento Mori and sharpens it into a practical, urgent question of daily economics. How are you spending your irreplaceable currency of moments? The crucial distinction the Stoics force us to confront is the vast difference between being busy and living purposefully. Our modern world is a masterpiece of manufactured busyness. Our calendars are packed, our to-do lists are long, and we wear our exhaustion as a badge of honor. But if you were to stop and conduct a ruthless audit of that busyness, how much of it is genuinely aligned with your deepest values? How much of it is spent in the active cultivation of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance? Seneca saw this with piercing clarity, writing, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." We carefully budget our finances, yet we thoughtlessly hemorrhage our time on trivialities, distractions, and the demands of others. We allow our most precious asset to be plundered by interruptions, by mindless consumption, and by a frantic but directionless activity that gives the illusion of progress while moving us no closer to a life of virtue and fulfillment. Purposeful living, from a Stoic perspective, is not about filling every second with productive labor. It is about the conscious, deliberate allocation of your attention and energy towards what truly matters, which is the development of your character and your contribution to the common good. This demands a level of intentionality that is foreign to our default mode of operation. It means constantly asking the question, is this activity, this conversation, this hour of my life moving me toward becoming a better, wiser, more virtuous human being? Or is it merely a way to pass the time, to numb an anxiety, or to fulfill an empty social obligation? Let's make this painfully concrete with a comparison that will resonate with almost everyone. Consider the average time spent on social media platforms. It is not uncommon for a person to lose 60, 90, or even 120 minutes in a single day, scrolling through a curated highlight reel of other people's lives. This time is not rest, it is often a state of agitated passivity. It fuels comparison, envy, and a distorted sense of reality. At the end of that 2-hour session, what have you built? What skill have you honed? What relationship have you deepened? What insight have you gained? The answer is almost always nothing. The time is simply gone, leaving behind a faint residue of dissatisfaction. Now contrast that with the same 2 hours invested differently. You could spend it reading 20 pages of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, engaging in a direct dialogue with one of the wisest minds in history, and absorbing principles for living that will fortify you for a lifetime. You could use that time to have a single, uninterrupted, deep conversation with your partner or a close friend, strengthening the bonds that form the true foundation of a happy life. You could dedicate it to learning the basics of a new language, practicing a musical instrument, or working on a creative project that expresses something unique about who you are. The difference in the quality of life produced by these two uses of the same 120 minutes is astronomical. One depletes you, the other enriches you. One is a leak in your vessel, the other is a deposit into your inner citadel. This is the Stoic calculus of time. It is not about eliminating leisure or relaxation, which are necessary for a balanced life. It is about choosing quality leisure activities that genuinely restore your spirit and align with your nature over mindless consumption that merely wastes your most finite resource. To make this principle active in your own life right now, I want you to conduct a simple but revealing audit. Pause the video for a moment if you need to. Think back over the last 7 days. What were the top 3 most time-consuming activities in your life outside of your necessary work and sleep? Be brutally honest with yourself. For many, the list will include things like scrolling through social media, watching television or streaming services, commuting, or perhaps attending meetings that lacked a clear purpose. Now take that list and hold it up against your stated values. If you say you value wisdom, how much of that time was dedicated to learning and deep thought? If you value relationships, how much of it was spent in meaningful, present connection with the people you love? If you value health, how much of it was invested in moving your body and preparing nourishing food? This is not an exercise in self-judgment, but in clear-eyed awareness. You cannot manage what you do not measure. Seeing the stark misalignment between how you actually spend your time and what you claim is important is the first, essential step toward reclaiming your days from the tide of busyness and redirecting them toward a life of genuine purpose and virtue. Your mind has a king, reason, and a mob, the passions. Every day is a test of who is in charge. This internal struggle is the central drama of the Stoic life, and it plays out in 1,000 small moments, from the flash of irritation when you are interrupted to the gnawing anxiety that keeps you awake at night. The Stoics did not believe that our emotions were evil in themselves. They saw them as powerful, natural forces, like the wind in the sails of a ship. A strong wind is not bad. It can propel you forward with incredible speed. But if that wind is not harnessed by a skilled captain, it can drive the ship onto the rocks. In this beautiful and practical metaphor, your soul is the vessel, your passions are the wind and the waves, and your reason is the captain at the helm, gripping the rudder and adjusting the sails. The goal is not to eliminate the wind. That would be impossible, but to ensure the captain remains in command, navigating the storms and using the energy of the passions to reach a chosen destination, rather than being blown aimlessly or destroyed by the tempest. This is the very essence of self-mastery. It is the disciplined practice of ensuring that your logical, discerning mind remains sovereign over your emotional impulses, leading to actions that are consistent, purposeful, and aligned with your deepest values rather than reactive, chaotic, and full of regret. Think about the last time you felt a powerful surge of anger or a wave of crushing anxiety. In that moment, it feels all-consuming, as if the emotion is the totality of your being. The Stoic practice asks you to take a step back, to create a tiny sliver of space between the feeling and your awareness of the feeling. In that space, you can begin to see the emotion not as you, but as a powerful weather system passing through the territory of your mind. It has arrived and it will eventually pass. Your job as the captain is to observe this weather, understand its nature, and decide how to respond to it, rather than being obliterated by it. This is not about becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. It is about moving from being a passive passenger on a ship tossed by the waves to becoming the active navigator of your own life. Let's take this from the philosophical to the intensely practical with an experience nearly every single one of us has faced: road rage. You are driving calmly and another car cuts you off dangerously. The initial, raw, physiological reaction is instantaneous. Your heart pounds, your muscles tense, and a hot wave of anger floods your system. the passion has just blown in like a gale force wind. In an unexamined life, this is where the mob takes over. The initial impression, that reckless idiot, he disrespected me, he deserves to be punished, is accepted as absolute truth without any scrutiny. This judgment then fuels the emotional storm, leading to a reactive action, laying on the horn, shouting, making an aggressive gesture, or even worse, engaging in a dangerous chase. The ship is now being steered directly by the storm, and a crash is a real possibility. Now, let's replay this scenario with the captain, reason, firmly at the helm. The car cuts you off. The initial jolt of fear and anger still arises. This is the body's ancient survival mechanism, and it is largely automatic. But before that jolt translates into your foot slamming the accelerator or your hand hitting the horn, you activate the pause. You take one conscious breath. In that breath, you, as the captain, observe the storm of anger. You then subject the initial impression to the scrutiny of logic. You ask, is my judgment that this was a personal insult absolutely true? It is highly unlikely the other driver even saw you, let alone targeted you personally. They are probably distracted, rushed, or simply a poor driver. Is the passion of anger helpful here? Will it make the road safer? Will it improve my day? The clear, rational answer is no. In fact, it will actively make things worse by impairing my own driving judgment and flooding my body with stress hormones. Having examined and relabeled the anger as an unhelpful, irrational impression, you can now choose a different response. You might take another deep breath to calm your nervous system. You might increase your following distance to ensure safety. You might even mentally extend a little goodwill, thinking, I hope they get where they're going safely, and I hope their day gets less frantic. The other driver's action remains the same. The external event is unchanged, but your internal world has been transformed from a chaotic battlefield into a scene of masterful navigation. The passion was acknowledged but not obeyed. Reason remained sovereign, and you arrived at your destination not only safer but with your peace of mind intact. This principle applies to every powerful emotion that threatens to derail you. The green-eyed monster of jealousy, the cold grip of anxiety about the future, the simmering pot of resentment, each one can be met with the same process. The captain must question the impression that fuels the passion. Jealousy often whispers, I deserve what that person has, and their having it means I have less. Reason can counter, their success is their own, my path is unique, their achievement does not diminish my potential, it can even serve as inspiration or a lesson. Anxiety screams, this future event will be a catastrophe. Reason responds, you are suffering in advance over something that is not only future but also largely outside your control. Focus on the present moment and the preparations within your power. To truly begin the work of strengthening your inner captain, let's engage in a targeted exercise. Identify one recurring emotional reaction that you find particularly disruptive or draining. It could be a flash of envy when a colleague succeeds, a surge of social anxiety before a meeting, or a familiar spiral of worry about your finances. Now take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. First, write down the automatic, irrational thought that typically accompanies this emotion. For jealousy, it might be, their success makes me look bad and proves I am falling behind. For anxiety, it could be, if this presentation doesn't go perfectly, my career is over. Be brutally honest, then, on the next line, write a rational counter-argument from the perspective of your sovereign reason. Challenge the distortion. For the jealousy example, you might write, their journey and mine are separate. Their achievement is a result of their effort and circumstances, and it has no direct bearing on my own worth or potential. I can choose to be inspired and focus on my own defined path. For the anxiety, your counter could be, this is one presentation among many. My career is built on a body of work, not a single performance. My goal is to prepare thoroughly and speak with integrity. The outcome is not entirely within my control, and it is unlikely to be catastrophic. The simple act of writing this down externalizes the internal conflict and empowers the voice of reason. It is a drill for the captain, a way of practicing the commands that will keep your vessel on course when the next emotional storm inevitably arrives. A fish swims, a bird flies, a human being thinks, chooses, and acts with reason. To go against this is to live contrary to our nature. This simple, almost self-evident observation is the bedrock upon which the entire Stoic philosophical system is built. It is the ultimate answer to the question of why practice the dichotomy of control, why cultivate virtue, why embrace our fate. The answer is that all these practices are not arbitrary rules. They are the essential instructions for a human being to live in accordance with our unique design, to fulfill our purpose within a vast and rational cosmos. The Stoics called this the goal of life, to live in agreement with nature. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno, defined this succinctly as living in harmony with the universal reason that permeates all of existence. His successor, Cleans, expanded on this, seeing the universe itself as a divine, living being governed by a rational and providential law. To live according to nature, therefore, means two things simultaneously: to live in accordance with our own specific nature as rational and social creatures, and to live in harmony with the nature of the whole, the grand, interconnected system of which we are a part. This is the universal law. It is not a set of commandments written in a book, but the operating principle of reality itself, as discernible as the law of gravity. When we act against reason, when we are swept away by irrational passions or act against the common good, we are not just making a moral error, we are committing a kind of cosmic error. We are like a fish trying to climb a tree or a bird attempting to breathe underwater. We are fighting against the very fabric of what we are and how the world works, and the resulting friction is what we experience as stress, anxiety, and a profound sense of dissonance. Every Stoic practice we have explored is a tool to sand down that friction, to realign our individual will with the grain of the universe. The dichotomy of control teaches us to focus our energy on our rational faculty, which is our distinctive human attribute. The discipline of desire refines our wants to align with what is truly good for our rational nature. The focus on virtue cultivates the excellence of our character, which is the highest expression of that nature. And the principle of sympatheia reminds us that our rational nature is a fragment of the universal reason, connecting us to the entire human community and the cosmos itself. This principle transforms every significant decision in our lives from a mere personal preference into a question of alignment. Consider a decision about your physical health. You might be contemplating a significant change in diet or committing to a regular exercise routine. The conventional questions are often about weight loss or physical appearance. But the Stoic frames this decision differently. They ask, is this choice in harmony with my rational, social nature? A body that is neglected, sluggish, and plagued by preventable illness is a poor vehicle for a rational mind. It clouds judgment, diminishes energy, and reduces your capacity to contribute to your family and community. Choosing to care for your health, therefore, is not a vanity project, it is an act of reason. It is using your rational faculty to understand the needs of the physical vessel that carries your mind, and it is an act of justice toward those who depend on you, ensuring you have the vitality to fulfill your duties to them. Now apply the same lens to a career choice. You might be offered a high-paying job that requires you to act unethically, perhaps by misleading customers or exploiting a loophole that harms others. The external rewards are tempting, but the Stoic test is clear. Does this path align with my rational and social nature? Acting unjustly or deceitfully is a direct violation of reason. It forces you to compartmentalize, to create a split between your actions and your understanding of what is right. This internal conflict is the very definition of living contrary to your nature. It creates a psychic wound that no salary can heal. Conversely, choosing a path that allows you to act with integrity, to use your skills creatively, and to provide a genuine service to others, even if it pays less, is a decision in full harmony with who you are designed to be. You are using your reason for a purposeful end and fulfilling your social nature as a cooperative member of the human community. This alignment brings a deep and lasting satisfaction that far outweighs the fleeting thrill of a larger paycheck. The same powerful reframing applies to our relationships. A conflict with a partner or a friend often descends into a battle of wills, focused on winning an argument or proving a point. The Stoic approach, guided by the universal law, shifts the focus entirely. The question becomes, how can I respond in a way that aligns with my rational and social nature? This means listening not to rebut but to understand, an act of wisdom. It means communicating your own perspective with clarity and without malice, an act of courage and justice. It means seeking a resolution that strengthens the bond and serves the common good of the relationship, rather than simply satisfying your own ego. You are no longer just two individuals in conflict. You are two rational beings attempting to restore harmony to a small but vital part of the social cosmos. To feel the transformative potential of this principle in your own life, bring your awareness to one area that currently feels dissonant or out of sync. It might be a habit you know is unhealthy, a relationship that feels strained and artificial, or a daily routine that leaves you feeling drained and fragmented. Identify that one area of friction. Now gently explore it through the lens of living according to nature. Ask yourself, in what specific ways is this situation or behavior going against my rational nature? Am I avoiding a difficult truth? Am I acting on an irrational impulse like fear or greed? Then ask, how is it working against my social nature? Is it causing harm to others? Is it isolating me from my community? Finally, and most importantly, brainstorm one small, concrete change you could make that would bring this area back into greater harmony. If it's a draining routine, perhaps the harmonious change is to carve out just 20 minutes for a quiet walk or reading, honoring your mind's need for reflection. If it's a strained relationship, perhaps the rational and social action is to initiate a conversation with the simple, virtuous goal of listening more than you speak. This is not about fixing everything at once, but about making a single, deliberate adjustment that turns you back toward the current of the universal law, allowing it to carry you toward a life of profound coherence and purpose. We fill every spare moment with noise, podcasts, music, notifications. What wisdom is being drowned out by this constant stream of input? In our hyper-connected world, the idea of seeking out silence and solitude can feel counterintuitive, even lazy. But for the Stoics, this was not an act of withdrawal from life. It was a necessary strategic retreat to fortify the mind for life's engagements. This practice is the essential maintenance required for your inner citadel, a dedicated time to commune with your own reason, away from the cacophony of external opinions and the relentless pull of other people's agendas. It is in these quiet spaces that you can hear the sound of your own judgments, examine your impressions, and realign your actions with your core principles. This is far from misanthropy. It is the discipline of temporarily stepping off the social stage to ensure that when you step back on, you are playing your own part with conviction, not merely reciting lines written by the crowd. Consider the most famous Stoic text of all, the personal journal of Marcus Aurelius. He did not write his meditations for publication or for an audience. He wrote them for himself in stolen moments of solitude, often on military campaigns far from Rome. Those pages were his sanctuary, a private room where he could engage in a dialogue with his own soul, reinforcing his virtues, questioning his reactions, and strengthening his resolve. It was the ultimate form of self-therapy, a practice of solitude that allowed him to return to the immense pressures of leadership with a clearer, calmer, and more rational mind. He was not escaping his duty, he was preparing for it in the most effective way possible. To bring this ancient practice into your modern routine, consider a simple but profound exercise, a daily 15-minute period of Stoic silence. This is not meditation in the formal sense, nor is it a nap. It is a conscious decision to eliminate all external input. Find a quiet space, put your phone in another room, and commit to 15 minutes with no podcasts, no music, no audiobooks, and no reading. You are not trying to force your mind to go blank. Instead, you are simply creating a container of silence and observing what arises within it. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might be besieged by a frantic to-do list, replayed conversations, or a restless urge to check for notifications. This is completely normal. Your mind is like a pond that has been constantly stirred. You are finally allowing the sediment to settle so you can see clearly to the bottom. Do not fight these thoughts, just observe them as they pass, like clouds in the sky. Notice the judgments you are making about your own mental chatter. This practice over time does two powerful things. First, it builds your tolerance for being with yourself without any external entertainment or validation. This reduces your dependency on the outside world for a sense of self and quiets the anxiety that comes from constantly comparing yourself to others. Second, it creates a space where your own innate reason can surface. Solutions to problems you have been wrestling with often appear spontaneously in these quiet moments. A clearer perspective on a strained relationship can emerge. A forgotten commitment to a personal virtue might resurface. This is the wisdom that was being drowned out by the noise, finally getting its chance to speak. To truly understand the transformative power of this, you must experience it directly. So, here is a concrete challenge. Look at your schedule for tomorrow and find just 10 minutes. It could be first thing in the morning before the household wakes, during your lunch break in a parked car, or in the evening before bed. Schedule it like any other important appointment. For those 10 minutes, commit to complete silence and solitude. No devices, no background entertainment, no distractions, just you in a room with your own thoughts. Do not try to achieve anything, simply sit or walk slowly and observe what arises in your mind without judgment. What themes keep recurring? What anxieties surface? What quiet insights might be waiting underneath the usual mental static? This single act of reclaiming 10 minutes of silence is a revolutionary declaration of independence from the noise of the world and a direct investment in the strength and clarity of your own inner citadel. No plague has cost the human race more dear. With that stark and unforgettable opening, the Roman philosopher Seneca begins his profound exploration of anger, a passion the Stoics viewed not as a simple emotion but as a temporary madness, a brief insanity that seizes control of our rational faculty. He describes it as the most destructive and volatile of all the passions, a fire that burns from within, leaving ruin in its wake long after the initial spark has faded. The Stoic position on anger is absolute and uncompromising. It is never useful, never rational, and never justified. It is a sickness of the soul that must be prevented where possible and extinguished immediately where it arises. This is because at its core, every single instance of anger is built upon a faulty judgment, a fundamental misreading of reality. The initial impression that triggers the rage is almost always a story we tell ourselves, a narrative of personal insult or injustice. We judge that a person's action was a deliberate affront, that an event should not have happened, or that a situation is an intolerable violation of how the world ought to be. This judgment, "this should not be," is the faulty foundation. The Stoic, however, trained in the art of objectivity, understands that the universe operates according to its own causal laws. Things happen as they do because of a complex web of preceding events. To rage against a fact of reality is as futile as raging against the law of gravity. The event itself is neutral, it simply is. Our judgment that it is an outrage is the optional and ultimately self-destructive add-on. Seneca systematically dismantles the argument for anger's utility. Some might claim it energizes a soldier in battle or provides the fuel for righteous justice. He counters that reason, clear and focused, is a far more reliable and effective commander than a mind clouded by fury. Anger, he argues, often leads to reckless actions we later regret, damaging relationships, destroying reputations, and causing harm that cool-headed reason would have avoided. It is a poor tool for justice because it seeks vengeance, not correction, and its punishments are typically disproportionate and cruel. The goal, therefore, is not to manage anger but to uproot it, to see it for the cognitive error it truly is and to refuse assent to the judgments that give it life. To see this in action, let's walk through a painfully common modern scenario. Imagine you work tirelessly for weeks on a detailed proposal, and you email it to your entire team for feedback. A colleague, known for being blunt, replies all with a terse public message that reads, "This seems rushed and misses the core problem. We need a complete rethink." The initial impression hits you like a physical blow. Your face flushes, your heart rate spikes, and a hot wave of indignation washes over you. The automatic, unexamined judgment forms instantly. He is publicly humiliating me. He has no respect for my work. This is a direct and unfair attack on my competence. In this moment, the inner fire is lit. The conventional, untrained response is to fuel this fire. You might immediately fire back a defensive and sharp email, seeing everyone to defend your honor. You might storm over to a coworker's desk to complain and recruit an ally. You might spend the rest of the day seething, replaying the comment in your head and plotting a counterattack. Your entire mental and emotional state is now held hostage by this single email. Now let's replay this scenario with the Stoic fire extinguisher in hand. The email arrives. The initial physiological jolt still occurs. That is a primitive, hardwired reaction. But before your fingers can type a single retaliatory word, you enact the critical pause. You close your laptop or put your phone down. You take several deep, conscious breaths, creating a space between the stimulus and your response. Inside that space, you become a detective investigating your own mind. You interrogate the initial, anger-fueled judgment. First, you ask, is it absolutely true that his intention was to humiliate me? Could there be other explanations? Perhaps he is under immense pressure from his own manager and is taking it out poorly. Perhaps he is simply a terrible communicator, and his bluntness is a character flaw, not a personal vendetta. Perhaps buried in the unhelpful delivery, there is a tiny grain of valid criticism you can use. Second, you apply the dichotomy of control. His email, his words, his opinion, these are all outside your control. Your reaction, your judgment, and your next action, these are 100% within your control. By focusing your energy here, you reclaim your power from the situation. Third, you reframe the event cognitively. Instead of, "This is a catastrophic personal attack," you consciously choose a more rational interpretation. "This is feedback delivered poorly. My worth is not determined by one person's opinion on one bad day. This is an opportunity to practice grace under pressure." From this place of calm analysis, your response can now be strategic and virtuous, rather than reactive and destructive. After an hour, you might walk to your colleague's desk privately and say, "I saw your email about the proposal. I'd like to understand your perspective better so I can improve it. Could you walk me through the core problem you see?" This response, born from reason, de-escalates the conflict, demonstrates professionalism, and opens the door to genuine collaboration. It extinguishes the fire rather than pouring gasoline on it. To truly integrate this wisdom, take a moment for a personal excavation. Cast your mind back to the last time you felt truly, deeply angry. It could have been yesterday or last year. Now, with the dispassionate curiosity of a scientist, analyze that event. What was the specific underlying judgment you made in that moment? Was it a story about a personal insult, a belief that a situation was unbearably unfair? Now, ask yourself the two most important questions. First, was that judgment completely and objectively true, or was it just one possible interpretation of events? Second, and most crucially, was the anger that followed actually helpful? Did it solve the problem, or did it create new ones? Did it make you wiser, or did it make you temporarily insane? The honest answer to these questions reveals the profound folly of the inner fire and illuminates the clear, rational path toward a mind that remains its own master, no matter what sparks fly in the world outside. Picture a simple stone dropped into a still pond. The impact point is you, your own mind and body. From that center, ripples expand outward in perfect, ever-widening circles. The first ring touches your immediate family and closest friends, the next your local community and colleagues, then your city, your country, and finally, the outermost ripple reaches every other human being across the entire globe. This beautiful image, attributed to the Stoic teacher Hierocles, is not just a metaphor for connection. It is a precise mental exercise and a radical ethical framework. Hierocles suggested that our goal should be to constantly draw the circles in, to bring the concern we naturally feel for those in the inner rings out toward those in the outer rings, until we feel a genuine sense of kinship with all of humanity. This is the Stoic principle of the circle of concern, and it represents a profound shift from a life of tribal attachment to one of cosmopolitan citizenship. The word cosmopolitan itself comes from the Greek for citizen of the cosmos. The Stoics were the original cosmopolitans, arguing that our most fundamental identity is not as members of a particular tribe, nation, or political party, but as rational beings sharing a common world. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who governed a vast empire of diverse cultures, constantly reinforced this idea in his private thoughts. He wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." And in a more personal reflection, he reminded himself, "My city and my country, as Antoninus, is Rome. As a human being, it is the world." This perspective immediately dismantles the walls of us versus them that cause so much conflict and suffering. When you see yourself as a citizen of the world, your primary allegiance is to the universal principles of reason and justice, not to the fleeting and often irrational passions of your particular group. This does not mean you love your family or your country less. It means you love them in the right context as precious parts of a much greater whole. Your duty to your child is a specific, intense expression of your general duty to the human family. This practice is a powerful antidote to the prejudice and partisan hatred that can so easily poison our modern discourse. Consider how this might transform your approach to a heated political or social issue. The conventional, untrained mind immediately falls into tribalism. It sees the other side not as fellow citizens with a different perspective, but as an enemy to be defeated, a threat to be neutralized. The conversation becomes a battle, and the goal is to win, not to understand or to find a common good. The Stoic, however, steps back and applies the circles of concern. They begin by acknowledging their own perspective, located at the very center. Then they consciously expand their view. They consider the people directly affected by the issue, who may be in the next circle out. They then push further, striving to understand the reasoning, however flawed it might seem, of those on the other side of the debate. They ask not, how can I prove them wrong, but what experiences, fears, or values have led them to this position? What part of their concern might be valid, even if their conclusions differ from mine? This is not about agreeing with everyone. It is about extending the basic respect of trying to understand. It is about recognizing that the person you see as an adversary is, in the grand Stoic scheme, a fellow citizen of the cosmos, a rational being who, like you, is trying to navigate a complex world, and who, like you, is ultimately subject to the same universal law. Your shared humanity forms a more fundamental bond than your political disagreements. From this place of expanded concern, your actions change. You are more likely to engage in dialogue rather than diatribe. You are more likely to seek solutions that benefit the entire hive, rather than just your own partisan swarm. You can advocate passionately for your beliefs without dehumanizing those who disagree, because your goal is the rational good of the whole, not the tribal victory of a part. To make this ancient wisdom active in your own life today, I invite you to a simple but potentially transformative mental exercise. Bring to mind a group of people or a specific individual whom you typically view as other or adversarial. It could be a political group you strongly disagree with, a competitor in your industry, or even just a difficult neighbor. Now, for just a few moments, consciously practice drawing their circle inward. Mentally place them not as distant outsiders, but in a circle much closer to your own. Acknowledge the simple, undeniable fact that they are human beings with the same capacity for joy and suffering as you. They have hopes, they have fears, they have people they love, and they are trying in their own imperfect way to find their way in the world. Wish them well. Not that they get everything they want, but that they too may find peace and wisdom. This act of mentally extending goodwill does not require you to change your principles or approve of their actions. It is an internal recalibration, a strengthening of your own character. It is a quiet, powerful declaration that your circle of concern is vast enough to include even those you struggle to understand, reaffirming your true identity not as a partisan fighter, but as a citizen of the world. You don't wait until you are critically ill to learn medicine. Why, then, would you wait for a life crisis to learn the medicine of the soul? This is the powerful lens through which the Stoics viewed their entire philosophical project. It was not an abstract intellectual hobby for the elite. It was a practical, urgent toolkit for healing the most common and debilitating ailments of the human spirit. The classroom of a Stoic teacher was not a lecture hall, but a clinic. The great philosopher Epictetus made this stunningly clear when he described his school as a hospital. He said to his students, "You enter here with a dislocated shoulder, another with an abscess, a third with a fistula, a fourth with a headache." He was not speaking of physical injuries, but of the psychological wounds we all carry. the dislocated judgment, the festering anger, the draining anxiety, the pounding worry about the future. And his role, as he saw it, was that of a physician. He stated, "Will you not, then, lay aside the things that belong to others and take up your own?" This was the diagnosis. Our suffering comes from mistaking what belongs to others' external outcomes, other people's opinions, for our own. The philosophy he taught was the precise treatment for this confusion. Every Stoic principle we have explored is, in this light, a specific prescription. The dichotomy of control is an antiseptic to clean the wound of anxiety. The discipline of desire is a regimen to strengthen a soul weakened by craving. The practice of negative visualization is a vaccine to build immunity against the fear of loss. Merely reading about these prescriptions is like holding a bottle of medicine without swallowing it. The healing power is not in the possession of the knowledge, but in its internalization and application. You must digest the teaching, break it down, and allow it to become part of your mental and emotional metabolism. It must move from being a thought you have to a lens through which you see the world. Let us make this intensely practical with a scenario nearly everyone faces: the gnawing anxiety before a high-stakes job interview. The ailment is a classic case of soul sickness, a racing heart, obsessive thoughts about the outcome, and a fear of judgment. The conventional approach is to simply endure this suffering, to white-knuckle your way through it. The Stoic, acting as their own physician, reaches for their medicine cabinet. They pull out the most potent remedy they have, the dichotomy of control. They sit down and write out two lists. On one side, the things outside their control; the other, candidates, the interviewer's mood, the company's hidden agenda, the final decision. They acknowledge these factors and consciously release their mental grip on them, understanding that to cling to them is to inject poison directly into their own system. On the other side, they list everything within their power, researching the company thoroughly, preparing thoughtful questions, practicing their presentation, getting a good night's sleep, choosing their attire, and most importantly, managing their own attitude, showing up with curiosity, courage, and professionalism regardless of the outcome. This act of categorization is the first dose of medicine. It immediately reduces the overwhelming, monolithic fear into a manageable set of actionable items. Then they apply a second prescription, the redefinition of success through virtue. They reframe the entire event. The goal is no longer to get the job, an outcome outside their command. The new goal is to perform virtuously in the interview. Can they act with wisdom by being well prepared and articulate? Can they demonstrate courage by speaking their truth even if it is challenging? Can they show justice by respecting the time and role of the interviewer? Can they exercise temperance by managing their nerves and not being overly eager or desperate, by shifting the target from an external trophy to an internal achievement? They completely transform the emotional landscape. The interview is no longer a terrifying test of their worth, but a training ground for their character. They can walk into that room with a fundamental sense of security because their success, defined as acting with virtue, is now 100% within their own power to achieve. This is the daily, applied work of philosophical medicine. It is not a one-time cure, but a lifelong practice of maintenance and healing. To begin your own treatment today, I want you to become your own soul's physician for a moment. Identify one current ailment you are experiencing. It might be a persistent worry about a family member's health, a simmering envy toward a colleague's success, a lethargic laziness that keeps you from starting a project, or a quick temper that flares in traffic. Now diagnose it clearly. What is the underlying faulty judgment? The worry might be based on the judgment that you must be able to control another's well-being. The envy might stem from the judgment that your worth is relative to someone else's achievements. Then, write yourself a specific prescription. Choose one Stoic principle from our deep dive and commit to applying it consciously to this specific ailment for the next 7 days. If your ailment is worry about the future, your prescription is to practice the view from above each morning, mentally zooming out to see your concerns within the vastness of cosmic time. If your ailment is envy, your prescription is the discipline of desire, where you consciously redirect your craving from their external success to your own internal growth and contentment. If your ailment is laziness, your prescription is the discipline of action, where you focus solely on the first, small, present moment step, confining your attention to the current task. The philosophy is the medicine, but you are the one who must take the dose day after day until the health of your soul becomes your new, unshakable reality. The desire for praise and the fear of blame are two of the strongest chains that bind us. We live in a world that constantly grades our performance, from the quantified likes on a social media post to the annual review at work and the subtle judgments of our peers. This external scorekeeping can become a prison, where our sense of self-worth is held hostage by the ever-shifting opinions of people whose own perspectives are often clouded by prejudice, misunderstanding, or their own personal struggles. Stoicism offers the key to this prison, not by teaching us to despise other people, but by guiding us to a profound re-evaluation of what truly constitutes our value. This is the discipline of remaining indifferent to external praise and blame, a practice that grants you the ultimate freedom, the freedom to define yourself from the inside out. The ancient teacher Epictetus, who knew the sting of being a slave and the fickleness of public opinion, put his finger directly on the core of the issue. He said, "It is foolish to be elated by the praise or dejected by the blame of people who don't even know themselves." Let that sink in for a moment. The very people whose approval we so desperately seek are often navigating their own lives with profound confusion, acting out of insecurities we know nothing about, and projecting their own unresolved issues onto us. To hand over the keys to your inner peace to such a jury is to build your house on a foundation of sand. The weather of their moods will constantly threaten to wash it away. Your true worth, the Stoics insist, is determined by one thing and one thing only: the quality of your own character and the integrity of your actions. Praise and blame are classified as external indifference. They are outside your control, and they have no inherent power to make you a better or worse person. A compliment does not inject virtue into your soul, and an insult cannot extract it. They are simply sounds people make, data points that may or may not be accurate, but which ultimately tell you more about the speaker than about yourself. This realization is not a call to become arrogant or unfeeling. It is an invitation to become unshakable. When you internalize this, you are no longer a leaf blown about by the winds of public opinion. You become the tree rooted deeply in your own principles, able to appreciate the sunshine of praise without needing it to live, and able to withstand the storms of blame without breaking. To see the stark difference this makes, let us paint a picture of two modern lives. First, consider the individual who has built their identity around the currency of social media validation. Their mood, their self-esteem, and even their major life decisions are subtly, or not so subtly, influenced by the pursuit of likes, shares, and positive comments. They post a carefully curated photo and then refresh their feed compulsively, their heart sinking with each passing minute that brings fewer likes than expected. They shape their opinions, their humor, and even their political views to align with their perceived audience, avoiding controversy for fear of backlash. Their life becomes a performance for an invisible crowd, and their sense of self is a fragile sculpture that can be shattered by a single critical comment from a stranger. This is a life of quiet desperation, a constant, exhausting hustle for a reward that is never truly fulfilling because it is never truly theirs. Now, contrast this with the person who has embraced the Stoic discipline of indifference to external opinion. This individual uses social media, perhaps, but they are not used by it. They post what they believe is true, beautiful, or helpful, acting from an internal principle of sharing value. They offer a dissenting viewpoint in an online discussion not to provoke, but because they believe it is a perspective that needs to be heard for the sake of a balanced conversation. When praise comes, they receive it with polite gratitude, but they do not internalize it as the final verdict on their worth. They see it as a pleasant external event, like a sunny day, but they know their core value remains unchanged. When criticism or scorn arrives, they meet it with the same detached analysis they would apply to any other external event. They ask, is there any useful feedback here that can help me improve? If so, they extract it. If not, they recognize the criticism as mere noise, the static of another person's reality, and they let it pass by without allowing it to disrupt their inner peace. Their compass is their own virtue, their own reasoned judgment of what is right, and that needle points true regardless of the cheering or the boos from the sidelines. This is not a hypothetical ideal. It is a practical stance available to anyone willing to do the work of reorienting their attention. It is the difference between being an actor on a stage, desperately seeking the approval of a fickle audience, and being the playwright of your own life, focused on the integrity of the script you are living out. The audience will clap or heckle based on their own tastes and moods, but the playwright's satisfaction comes from knowing the story was written with truth and purpose. To begin forging this freedom in your own life, I offer you a direct and purposeful challenge. Before this day is over, make a conscious choice to do or say one thing that you genuinely believe is right, but that you know might not be popular or easily understood by those around you. It does not have to be a grand, world-changing act. It could be as simple as respectfully declining an invitation to participate in office gossip, knowing it might make you seem aloof. It could be voicing a thoughtful counter-opinion in a meeting where everyone else is nodding in agreement, accepting the temporary discomfort for the sake of a more complete discussion. It could be choosing to spend your evening working on a personal passion project instead of scrolling through feeds, even if it means you are out of the loop on the latest viral trend. The specific action is less important than the conscious intention behind it. You are conducting a real-world experiment in sovereignty. You are proving to yourself through action that your worth is not negotiable, that it does not fluctuate with the stock market of public opinion. In that moment of choosing principle over popularity, you will feel the weight of those chains fall away, and you will taste the profound, unassailable freedom of a mind that answers only to its own well-examined conscience. Think of yourself as a Stoic archer. Your entire focus is on drawing the bow with skill, aim, and strength. The wind, the target, the sudden movement in the distance, these are not yours to command. This powerful metaphor, eloquently described by the Roman statesman Cicero in his work on ends, serves as the ultimate synthesis of the entire Stoic system. The archer's chief goal is not merely to hit the target. His highest aim is to shoot well. He must do everything within his power to execute a perfect shot. He selects the best arrow, checks the fletching, plants his feet firmly, draws the bowstring with controlled strength, takes a steady aim, and releases with a smooth, fluid motion. This entire process, from preparation to release, represents what is within his complete control: his judgment, his intention, his technique, his effort. This is the realm of virtue, The moment the arrow leaves the bow, however, it enters the domain of fortune. A sudden gust of wind can deflect it, the target might move, or an unforeseen obstacle could appear. Whether the arrow strikes the bullseye, veers off course, or misses entirely is now a result of countless external factors. The wise archer understands this fundamental division. He does not stake his self-worth or his peace of mind on the outcome, which is fickle and uncertain. His satisfaction, his true success, is derived from the knowledge that he performed every single step of the shot to the absolute best of his ability. He can walk away from the range with his head held high, regardless of where the arrow landed, because his integrity as an archer remains untarnished. This single image elegantly weaves together the three most crucial threads of Stoic wisdom. The dichotomy of control is the clear line between the archer's actions and the arrow's flight. The principle that virtue is the sole good is embodied in the relentless pursuit of a skillful shot, not the hollow prize of a hit, and equanimity is the calm, even-minded acceptance of the final result, whether it brings cheers from the crowd or silence. Your life is lived in the drawing, aiming, and releasing. The outcomes are simply the echoes of your effort in a complex and unpredictable world. To see how this synthesizing principle operates in a complex modern endeavor, let's apply it to the ambitious project of starting a business. Your vision is your target, perhaps to build a thriving company that provides a valuable service and supports your family. The Stoic approach completely reframes the entrepreneurial journey from the very beginning. Your entire focus, your shot, must be on the virtuous process of building. This means pouring your energy into what you can control, developing a genuinely excellent product or service, treating your employees and early customers with fairness and respect, operating with unwavering ethics even when a shortcut seems tempting, managing your finances with prudence, and persevering through the inevitable challenges with courage and resilience. Your shot is the quality of your daily effort, the integrity of your operations, and the attitude you bring to the work. Now, consider the wind and the target, the external factors that constitute the outcome. The market reception, the timing of your launch, the actions of your competitors, the state of the economy, the fickle nature of consumer trends, these are all elements you can influence but never fully command. You can aim perfectly, but a sudden economic downturn or a disruptive new technology can act like a gust of wind, pushing your arrow off course. The business that achieves viral, meteoric success might have taken a less than perfect shot but was blessed by a favorable wind. Another venture built on a foundation of excellence and integrity might struggle for years, its arrow persistently nudged away by unforeseen circumstances. The founder who has internalized the mindset of the Stoic archer is fortified against the emotional whiplash of this reality. When a product launch fails to gain traction, they do not descend into self-loathing or blame the universe. They calmly examine their shot. Did we prepare adequately? Did we act with integrity throughout? Did we give it our best effort? If the answer is yes, then they accept the outcome with equanimity, learn from any tactical errors, and knock another arrow. Conversely, when they experience a major success, they enjoy it without becoming attached or arrogant. They see the fortunate outcome for what it is, a welcome external event, a gust of wind that happened to be at their back. They know that their true achievement was the quality of their shot, and they remain focused on the process of taking the next one with the same disciplined excellence. This mindset is the ultimate antidote to the anxiety and burnout that plague so many high achievers. It transfers the locus of your self-esteem from the unpredictable external world to the solid ground of your own voluntary actions. You are no longer a victim of circumstances praying for a lucky break. You become a consummate professional, a master of your craft whose primary concern is the purity of your own performance. So let's bring this synthesis directly into your own life. Take a moment to identify your current target. What is a significant goal you are working toward right now? It might be a career objective, a fitness milestone, a creative project, or a relationship you are trying to improve. Now perform a conscious mental shift. Refocus your energy entirely away from that target and onto the quality of your shot. What does a virtuous, skillful shot look like in this context? It is the integrity of your daily actions. It is the courage you show in facing difficulties. It is the wisdom you apply to your planning. It is the justice and kindness you extend to others involved in the process. It is the temperance you exercise in managing your desires and frustrations. Your target is a distant, shimmering possibility. Your shot is the tangible, controllable reality of this present moment. By committing to the excellence of your shot, you reclaim your power, you secure your peace, and you ensure that no matter where the arrow lands, you will have grown in strength, character, and wisdom for having drawn the bow. And so our deep dive into the ancient well of Stoic wisdom brings us back to the surface, not with a list of dusty rules, but with a living, breathing blueprint for a different kind of life. The relentless chase for external validation, the exhausting pursuit of a trophy case filled with achievements that can be taken away, this entire framework for success has been gently but firmly dismantled. In its place, we find something far more durable and infinitely more peaceful. Modern success, redefined through the Stoic lens, is not something you acquire. It is something you build within. It is the unshakable resilience that allows you to stand firm in any storm. It is the quiet dignity of a virtuous character that no market crash can devalue. It is the profound peace that comes from no longer fighting reality, but from working creatively with the materials you have been given. We began by drawing the most critical line you will ever draw, the dichotomy of control, learning to invest our precious energy solely in our own judgments, efforts, and actions, and to release our white-knuckled grip on everything else. From there, we performed the ultimate act of liberation, redefining success itself not as wealth or status, but as the quality of our character, making our worth utterly unassailable by fortune's whims. And we embraced the most creative of practices, Amor Fati, learning to love our fate and see every obstacle not as a barrier, but as the very path forward, the raw material for our growth. These are not just ideas, they are tools for a fundamental transformation. The philosopher Epictetus, who knew the meaning of true freedom better than most, offered a final, empowering thought that encapsulates this entire journey. He said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom from endless wanting, the freedom to find joy and sufficiency in your own reasoned will and virtuous actions. It is the freedom that comes from aligning your inner world with the nature of the universe, accepting what is, and focusing your power where it can actually make a difference. This is not the end of a lecture, but the beginning of your practice. The principles we have explored are a toolkit, and their value is realized only through use. So here is my direct challenge to you. Look back over these timeless ideas and choose just one single principle to consciously practice for the next 7 days. Perhaps it is the simple act of pausing before you react, guarding that space between stimulus and response. Maybe it is performing a 5-minute evening review to audit your day with gentle honesty. It could be the practice of negative visualization to ignite a deeper gratitude for the people you love, or the discipline of action, performing one small, anonymous act of kindness purely for the common good. Do not try to change everything at once. Pick one and live with it for a week. See how it begins to subtly rewire your reactions and reshape your days. We have built this understanding together, and I am genuinely curious to hear which of these Stoic keys has unlocked something for you. As you move forward, share in the comments below which single principle resonated most deeply with your life right now. Your insight could be the spark that helps another viewer on their own path. If you found this journey valuable, subscribe to the channel for more practical wisdom to help you navigate the complexities of modern life with clarity, purpose, and an unshakable inner peace. The work begins now. Your path to a life of genuine success is waiting.